Did you say it was gonna Admin. Okay, this is Bill Kanda, Custer County Chairman of the Board of Commissioners. This is Wednesday, August the 4th, 2021 at 9 a.m. I call this meeting to order. And if you would, silence your phones and your watches. And same rule, please remind me again. I got reminded by two people yesterday that went through a change of thing. Anyway, thanks. This meeting is being recorded both on Zoom and on recorder here at with Kelly Camper, our clerk. And YouTube. And YouTube as well. That's right. Okay, and with that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will do the honor. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, roll call there, Kelly.
Commissioner Kanda.
Here.
Commissioner Flower.
Present.
Commissioner Day.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And clerk to the board, Kelly Camper, present.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad you're a switch hitter on that. You go back and forth.
Yeah. Makes everybody feel good.
All right, everybody's here. Audience introductions. Who do we have in the corner?
Excuse me, Gateway Day Wentworth.
Bob Jolly, the airport. Bob McDonald, airport.
Tina Jones, Administrative Assistant, BOCC.
Up here in the front.
Aaron Kemp, Westwood Meats.
Montana Canterbury, Westcliff Meats.
Anybody in the hall? Are we good? Okay, thanks. And if there are anybody that wants to comment during public comment and hasn't been introduced, we'll introduce them then. Any amendments to this agenda? Tom?
No, sir.
Kevin?
No.
All right, I don't have any either. And then there are no minutes to approve as far as I know. Kelly caught us up and then left town to make sure we approve them. And we did.
Oh, good.
Commissioner items. Was there a lot happening overnight last night, Tom?
No, sir.
Kevin?
I just did get a hold of a couple of people off of our list and got some answers from them. So I think we'll discuss that probably a little later.
Are they
reflected on this list?
Or new list?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And only thing I have to say is it was a great, what do we call that officially? It's nationwide,
National Night Out.
National Night Out for law enforcement, basically. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know there were so many volunteers on that Westcliff Sheriff's Office. We had everybody that had a dog in the fight. A few of them were absent, but they were well represented, and it was a great event. And as I mentioned earlier, privately, before we started the meeting, it looked like it was going to get rained out for a while, but boy, they had it set up nice, little bouncy house. And they were ready to grab a hold of the ropes if a tornado came. And it looked like it might, because the Sangres were just coated with clouds and raining, and it looked like it might break loose. And after everybody kind of got in line, sure enough, the sky parted. The sky got blue and sunny, and it was calm. And the hamburgers were great. And I know there's a lot of donations going on to make that successful by a lot of people. So I'd like to thank Westcliff Meats, and also the Custer County Bobcat Booster Club did a big job of donating food and labor. So, thank you for that. That was a great community event. Did anybody in this room go besides me? Yeah. These two right here. I know. And Clint swore up and down that he had to do the resolution first, and so that's why he was late. CA, Custer County Attorney. All right, that's all I have. Any attorney items?
I felt like I was back in college last night. I practically pulled an all-nighter trying to get up to speed on what the Board of Equalization.
What the heck is that?
Yeah, since the JP gave me, here's the cassette tape he gave me, July 30, 1999. I don't know if that was the last meeting of the Board of Equalization, but I listened to it, and it Cleo Day was one of the commissioners.
Holy smokes, it's a historic event today.
Yes, anyway, I listened to it a little bit to get an idea.
Where did you find a cassette player? What is that? What kind of a cassette?
I had JD gave it to me.
Is it a special, is it a special machine or is it an actual old?
No, it's an actually old one that JD rummaged around and found somewhere. I guess it's still floating around.
In our courthouse?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he had to go to the pawn shop and get it.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm prepared to, and on that, I don't know if you want to talk about the procedure now or when
I will
we
wait.
started. Okay, that's fine. That's all I had to talk about then today.
Okay.
I am, by the way, going to, as soon as we're finished today, I'm going to start working on the resolution for the ballot question on sales tax. Shannon had inquired where that stood, and I should have that. I could have it out probably by tomorrow or Friday. For sure.
Yeah, I saw that. You made it all in caps that you were after that.
Yeah, because I realized the cap was on after I.
He wasn't really yelling.
I mean, I thought he was yelling at us. Well, I'm gonna do it. Just be quiet. Be patient. Okay. All right. So that's it. Huh?
That's it.
How about you, Tina? You got anything?
I have nothing today.
Okay. Public comment. Anybody here have an opinion to express for us to act on later? Anybody lighting up out there? Is anybody on besides Jordan?
Just all internal.
Okay, good. All right, staff reports. This is what we've all been waiting for. I don't know if they're ready because it's 10 minutes to go. Do you want to put the airplanes on hold or are we going to line up and take off? All right, Bob Jolly and Bob,
Whoever.
the other Bob
Yeah.
McDonald.
Okay, so we'll start off with the fuel status. Month of July, total gallons sold is 1,371 gallons,
Even?
0.3. And that put us at total sales of $6,294.27.
Just before you go on, how does that compare with last summer? Like 500 more or less?
It's about more, yeah, about that.
Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
COVID made a difference.
Up in. We did receive a fuel delivery of 2,727 gallons on the 18th of this month. Which basically leaves us with 2,252 gallons in the tank. Okay. So
Well, you were
there.
cutting the line, weren't you?
What's that?
You were cutting the line on
Yeah, it's going quick, yeah.
that.
So I guess, we're getting ready for the Air Fest on the 14th, getting that set up. And
Want to describe that real quick? Airfest is what, just for the record?
it's a pancake breakfast. And watch airplanes fly around.
Music.
You
Yes,
know,
music
you
too.
have food, and
Community social event for
Yeah.
Custer County.
so try to make it. If you like airplanes.
I hate airplanes. I'm more of a helicopter guy.
Well, you-
Heck with airplanes.
We'll bring in the.
Did you get a flyer out or was it just on the internet to give it to other airports? People that could fly in here.
There's something in the newspaper, right?
Flyer.
Yeah, and then we put a banner up on the jet hanging out there by the airport.
Yeah, you know, don't you have a website? I thought you did.
You're asking the wrong guys.
I guess you don't. Okay.
I think someone.
How do people, I thought people, I see them emailing in all the time. You just watching the email? Yeah. Anyway, good question. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think, was it, Brian Anderson follows the Facebook thing, I believe, or somebody does. I don't.
Okay, something to talk about at our next meeting. I'll try to be there for,
There you go.
I missed the last one.
So, and then we got a visit from the sheriff's department, they're looking at maybe possibly doing some training on the runway in November. So they want to close it for a day or two. One day, okay.
Why? Simulate an airplane crack up or what are they gonna do?
No, hopefully not. Basically training for their, driving, doing whatever.
Ah.
They did this 2 or 3 years ago, or
Mhm.
they do it again. I guess airport's got no problem with it if they bring it up at some point.
Runway or the apron or both?
Runway, yeah. And they're looking at November timeframe. But we just figured we'd let you know.
They're waiting for ice and snow. So
Yeah, there you go. Plenty of it.
they have a bunch this year.
So that's about it. Then we're supposed to see the new fuel tank in probably five weeks or so. And we came up with a plan for location on that.
Before you do that, fuel tank delivery, everything's running to oil and nobody's trying to raise the price and all that.
What do you mean? What you said?
Is everything coming as scheduled? Are they manufacturing and are they doing what we asked? You cut out some of the things that made it possible, right? So
Yeah, so everything's on schedule. We figure 4 to 6 weeks to see the delivery. So we started moving forward with location
okay,
as we spoke.
yeah.
I brought a set of blueprints over for you, maybe to take a look at.
Why don't you hold it up and point to something?
Yeah.
We won't use Montana this time. He would chart.
Here, I'll just hold it up for you.
You just put it out there. Why don't you take over by the door? Maybe Gayla can help hold inside.
Fold and sign.
Yeah,
That'd be good. Just, and you can turn toward the
but
people.
Oh.
There you go, just like that. Can we all see it?
anyway,
Now turn it.
You can't see it.
Now turn it a quarter this way. Okay, now just turn it around.
so can you see
Can you
it?
see it there?
No, turn it this way now so we can see. That's it. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
All right, where is it?
There we go.
Okay, so on this is just a blown up view, existing ramp. This area here is superimposed from Armstrong
It's
Consulting.
the original drawing.
So they proposed putting in new tanks, diesel or the jet fuel and
Okay, make it, wait a minute, make it really clear. That wasn't them proposing. That was a coordinated decision. And we actually went through several iterations with designs before you got involved.
sure.
So that was the one when they were helping sponsor things and working together with us, that we came up with the integrated plan.
Right.
Okay,
So this is the new integrated proposal plan.
okay.
So if we get the tank and put it in that location, we'd have to do a considerable, big time concrete work, asphalt. And you can see it's, 200 feet. It's a big chunk. So it's gonna be hard to get that done within the next 5, 6 weeks. So our thought was, for now, and it's all to scale, we can take the new tank, basically put it at the existing, little circle there. Temporarily, or at least mount it, get it up and running. In time when
Is it big enough to hold that big tank?
excuse me?
Is it big enough to hold the bigger tank?
Yeah, there would be the size of right here, this little guy here. That's the size. The thought is put it here for now. It would be less expensive, easier. And then, we can't put it here because it will just wreck their new plan. So financially and timing wise, the thought is get it here when the expansion project does kick in. It's an easy move. And once all this work is done, just set it there and plug it in and go. That's the thought.
Any thought of I guess that the existing card reader and everything will integrate with the new tank.
Yeah, so for now, basically we leave the card reader where it is. And then once both tanks are there, they'll both be integrated together.
Mm.
There would just be a lot of extra work if we Well, first of all, if we did all this expansion, it would be just an astronomical cost to us to get, 'cause we can't just set it out there in the dirt.
No,
You know,
there's going to be something. There was a thought of just putting it next to the apron. and then
Yeah, well,
redoing
and
the
we,
ramp.
yeah, we were thinking right here. But then all that work is gonna be dug up and redone. And here's the other problem. If we put it here, once this work starts, then we gotta rip this out and then we have no fuel for a month or three. So in order to keep fuel flowing, just kind of set it there.
How big is the pad that you have to pour now up there where you're proposing it?
That's gonna be 40 by 8.
Like 8?
Yeah, by 8. It's only 8 foot wide. So,
No.
we're probably gonna go 40 by 10. We actually have a civil engineer working on the design for that, volunteer, of course. Friend of Bob's here. Long story short, if once we do move this, it's an easy move, integrated to here.
You know, that reminds me too, it's on skids, it's easy to move.
It's saddles. So basically, it's got 2 big old saddles it sits and bolts onto.
Just crane the tank up, pour new concrete.
Yeah, so once this is done, so say the jet fuel comes in, a tank, drop it in, cranes here, pick that up, plug it all in. It's just an easy integration plan. The good news is, once this is moved, we can use this area, maybe put a little parking, park the courtesy cars under there, or make a picnic area, whatever, but it's not wasted space.
Break.
You know what I mean?
You're doing as good a job as Montana did.
She looks better doing it.
Yeah.
And then that's your
She
proposed
wasn't completely
area.
hiding behind it.
Yeah, this is basically, this is just a scale
Okay.
dimension, but the new tanks would go right
Oh,
here.
they go in the middle of that pad.
The existing is here, so we'd have to put 200 feet,
Right.
like 200 full of, there's a lot of.
Explain the traffic flow so I remind everybody. The reason that's in the middle is to allow.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, go all the way around.
Right, sure. With the big jets.
right, and if we put it here, well, then we're gonna just take half of our existing parking
Lose part.
and lose all that. So anyway, we thought that might be an option. We figured we'd pass it by you and see what you think.
Kevin, will you get any questions?
So when your other fuel tank comes in, then you'll run your power for it, and then that's when you can run the power for both tanks and everything.
Yeah, so right now, the power accessory is all there. So it's an easy, basically just put the new tank in. When they do the new upgrade, all that will be run new and ready. So anyway, that's just, we thought we'd run it by you, see what you think. Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me
Yeah,
too.
I think it's a good plan. Like I say, it addresses the issue of the financial concern about doing that whole pad before we ever get the
Right.
new tank. I just don't see that happening. So I think it's a very sensible approach.
I think it's a very good plan, and it also allows us later to point out, get BOCC for another entity, like the National Guard wants to donate some money for jet aid up here or whatever. They can see that there's a thought out plan to make it happen. So we can get another tank.
So it's good for now and the future. I mean, or as far as growth,
We'll use the same fuel card reader and everything once it's moved.
Any other thoughts, Ken?
I don't think so, other than, how old is that card reader?
Brand new.
Year and a half.
Year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
Costs
It's fairly new.
18,000 bucks. I know,
Yeah.
we split it with BOCC.
and it's designed and set up to use jet fuel and the aviation, the. So that's the beauty. Once we know the jet fuel's coming and it's ready to go.
Logs it and it turns on the proper pump.
Well, sure. Just don't get the wrong fuel.
I was just asking that because we have some issues that we're dealing with at Road and Bridge, so.
Yeah, they got it right.
Right.
Is it a wireless one?
It is.
It is. They got a different interference problem.
Yeah, we're connected to cellular data. edited. So
Which reminds me now, any other questions on the fuel system? How's the FCC license? When are we gonna get the AWAS on the chart?
I got a letter from the FAA. They stated that because of COVID,
Oh, they're blaming COVID?
don't shoot the messenger. Yeah, they're just really slow. So it's gonna take a few more months to commission the AWAS. The good news is it works. I mean, you know,
You got the phone number for it? Do you have it memorized?
well, someone memorized it.
You should be calling, you fly.
It's in the phone.
Do you want the number?
Yeah. Put it on the
I
record.
have it here. Standby.
719.
Okay, here we go. 783-3544.
So anybody can dial that now and get the current weather and winds and the forecast, if you, reason I'm bringing it up.
All the current weather information.
At that
Your
airport.
cows, and you can see if it's raining there.
I think those are like 40 miles away.
Don't call that number that.
Well, you can extrapolate in your mind.
Sure, yeah. His weather's the same.
It's always
Really doesn't tell
consistent
you
around.
weather.
All right. You go ahead.
Question for him, if I may. Lynn reached out to me about trying to find somebody to run the mower. Did you guys find anybody yet or not? And I told him I would follow up. I think I talked to him before yesterday, so.
We didn't really find anybody, but we've been mowing. And if we don't find anybody, we'll have the grounds. in
Are you
order.
willing to pay somebody or are you looking for a volunteer? I know you're looking for a volunteer, but we
Yeah,
can pay.
Lynn was hoping there was someone in jail that could help us out.
Yeah. So I would suggest, and I thought it was a good idea they had, that maybe if you have time after you leave here, maybe we'll go over and talk to Shannon about it and see.
Okay.
I told him I would. I didn't have a chance yesterday.
We can do that.
So,
See you driving off down to Walsenburg on a mower. That would not be good.
okay, good.
Good. If you are able to pay, and, you know, by the, what would you propose? It's once a week or once every 2 weeks or when it's as needed? How do you do it?
As needed, yeah.
So,
You're trying to get mowed up for your air fest, right?
you know, you gotta get it done now. We need to find a volunteer.
Yeah, just to get some extra help.
I do have a guy that's looking for a part-time job like that, not a job, but can come and hit and miss. So I can give you that number. See what you know.
So as you know, the grass is growing quicker than,
Yeah.
yeah.
How's our erosion? It's not giving us any problems, right? Where we fixed the end of the runway
Yeah, no.
because of the rains. I think it is. Okay,
I believe that's all we have.
great. Thanks. And you did it in record time, 10 minutes.
There you go.
Thanks for coming in.
We'll try to consolidate it next month.
It's because of Vanna Day holding the signs up. Vanna.
Easy enough.
Thanks.
All right, gentlemen, ladies, enjoy your day. Everyone be good.
Thanks for coming in.
Say hi here now. It's just, oh,
And listen, I guess we'll just move forward with the plan.
yeah, and get the flyer, get something going. What day is the
Saturday, 14th.
14th? So you got some time.
So
to get
next,
talk to our PIO and see if she's got something.
Thank you.
enjoy.
Anybody online?
All internal.
Okay. All right, let's move on, Brady.
Well, sir, how are you?
Good, how are you guys doing?
So you have your sincere suit on?
This is my sincere suit.
I'll believe every word now.
Okay, that was the intention.
Okay.
All right, I will not be 10 minutes today, but I will, I wish it was that direction. I've got a lot I'd like to run through with you all. Okay. And so got a list here and try to keep a good clip
It's
on
been
it.
100 days.
Yep, been over 100 days, so I wanted to do a quick review of what the first 100 days looked like for me on the job. So starting, of course, with victories, because there's no better place to start than that. First of all essential functions of the office continuing without lapse. I think that was from my perspective was a good thing. Because it was a little touch and go at times, especially that first month and getting payroll out. And then continuing to get payroll out with everything else that was going on. So new software is completely converted and functioning for the finance office. So everything is working fine on our department side, and I'll explain more on that. a little bit
Any
later.
other departments are having software issues?
Meaning specifically for the finance side, that the treasurer, there's some work that needs to be done
Okay.
still.
I liked your sign by the window on the west wall.
Which
Vouchers with a big circle with a bar through it.
No vouchers.
Barbie
Barbie.
created that.
Oh, did
her
she?
artistic talent, so.
That was cute.
So third would be systems built for payroll and accounts payable to support the software. So we kind of revamped what that looks like. And within that, a successful pay cycle shift, moving the county to where we now have pay cycle from the 16th to the 15th of the month, which is going to eliminate a lot of hours of admin time monthly, not only for my office, but for those individuals that are having to calculate. So I think that was a huge win. And then lastly would be a greater record accessibility and transparency for departments. The fact that every department can now go in and pull their own budget, be able to look and see where their finances are whenever they want to, I think is a huge deal. And that's very much the software, but also the work on our
You
department
getting
side.
that from the departments too? Are they agreeing with your assessment?
As far as the transparency,
Yeah.
I've heard nothing but good things, either in front of me or behind me. So if there's words going around that are bad, I have not heard them. And I'm encouraging people to let me know, because we can make changes. We can do whatever we can to try to make it best for everyone. So, yeah. So of course, there's been a learning curve for all of that. But overall, I've been very impressed with every department or their representative in being able to function on submitting invoices, being able to pull reports, being able to submit time for our little, 2 sessions that we had where people got that information. They kind of hit the ground running. And so it's been awesome.
Good.
To that end, we have a staff meeting at the end of the month. Should we include a little time for you to have a conversation with whoever shows up at that staff meeting? Or you feel like you're communicating with everybody pretty good?
I think so. The only thing that I'll mention here later would be a victory as well. I didn't put that up there, but I'm having monthly meetings with every department, short of a couple. The commissioner's department being one of those, but
Because we learned.
we're also exactly, yeah. And I figured you guys don't need that.
Do what you tell me.
You know who to obey.
Yeah. So
Tell Stina as we do that.
Yeah.
so there's a few departments that are kind of like BSO, for example. I haven't spoken with Jared, but also he's got enough going on too. So there's things like that would be the only thing that I could see being helpful maybe in that meeting, is just making sure that everybody that wants to have that ability to work with my office does. And I would appreciate if every department did. So. Okay. All right. So challenges over the last 100 days. Again, the no guide on how to get things done. And so just kind of working in the dark and trying to figure things out. Finding the inefficiencies in our current processes and adapting processes to the new software has been one of those challenges. One that I think that we're getting a lot closer on defeating there.
What's the biggest one of those? Is it miscellaneous funds or what?
That certainly is the biggest one in the relationship with the treasurer's office, I would say. As far as besides that, I think so much time was devoted to admin work before that. It's just trying to navigate how do we cut out a lot of that admin time and be able to focus that on bigger picture finance, bigger picture human resources, good things. So which is going well. Revenue side of CIC needs a lot of work.
What does that mean?
That's kind of the treasure side. So the way I have oversimplified it, but I think accurately, is that all money in is treasure, all money out is my office. I would also say that in addition to that, my office is taking the responsibility of the general system of accounts and how the accounting system works. Yeah. So that is how I see how that's working and what that relationship will look like.
Good, I'm glad. And somebody needs to oversee the whole system.
Yeah.
Make sure it's consistent.
Right.
And have it disjointed.
Yeah.
CIC been good to work with.
Yes, there's definitely been a lapse in not having somebody here, but for the most part, they are very quick. There's an instant response button that I type in a issue that I might be facing, and usually within 4 hours, I've got a call.
So that's always an online thing, or do you
Yeah.
call them direct?
I always submit something online. They always call back. So it works well. It's a little different to get used to as opposed to just calling up and saying, hey, I've
If you
got
got an
this.
emergency, will they answer the phone immediately, or do they just tell you to get online?
There is an option for that, which I've used once, and they've been prompt.
Okay.
So I've been impressed with that.
Do we need to think about trying to get a live person back out here?
I think after I plan on floating in on Virginia's meeting today, and I know Vernon's in there right now as well, or will be in there for that meeting. I think we'll see what that looks like and kind of assess it from there. I think most of the things on my end could be done over Zoom. I'd rather do that if we can, because getting, as much as I'd like to have Mark here in person and how much more efficient I think that is, he's got to drive from all the way to Kansas, and we pay his mileage and his hotel for that. So I'd rather not if we can avoid that.
Yeah, and I'm willing to consider if we need him here to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I just think this is the guts of the whole county operation, so.
Yeah.
If it needs to be done.
Absolutely.
You have to spend the money. You have to do it.
Yep.
That's,
Yeah.
I agree.
Doing what we can to make sure we don't have to if we don't need to. But so next would be the system of accounts needing an overhaul. That's just simple things such as simple concepts rather, as X grant comes in and then there's an expense account for X grant. And right now we don't have that across the board. And that's something that I think is a missed opportunity in both clarity and transparency of our funds.
And ease of administering.
Right. Yeah. So I think not having worked with the old system very much in the finance side, I think this system will be easier to be able to do things like that. And then for me, it's just a greater understanding of how that works in a year to year. If we get a grant halfway through 2022, we've already budgeted X amount on this side. Did we just put in another grants on either side in order to make sure we take into account when that comes in, or can we just add that account and call it good? And so there's some things like that I haven't been able to dive into to understand what we should do as a county. But that's, I think, certainly on the front end, on the budget side, being able to say, all right, this is the accounts that we have, and this is the expenses that tie to those accounts specifically.
And to that end, I think Tina's cleared with your schedule on the 9th for that workshop.
Correct. Yeah,
And I'm assuming we have some more of that conversation.
Yeah. that sounds great. Lastly, and challenges would just be inconsistent policies or lack, I would say the lack of authority and complete information for the current personnel policy. I think there's some holes there, and even where there's not holes, I wouldn't say it's necessarily held an authoritative stance in the county currently.
We definitely got some work to do with that.
So that would bring me to what my goals are for the next 3 months. And first to me is the most basic fundamental of where we need to be, and that's the finance focus. That this system of accounts needs to be overhauled and ready for 2022, and that the budget for 22 is created based on that new system of accounts and done within the timeline that we normally would. So looking at some sort of preliminary information to departments about their budget this month, some sort of response next month, and then of course budget hearings in October, which I had not had a chance to look. Do we have those scheduled
Yes.
currently? Yeah, okay. So I can find those later.
And since you're on the budget end.
Yeah.
I wonder if it wouldn't be wise for us to start on the 12th. Runs through the 15th.
Thank you.
To have a pre-budget workshop with your AD. And he hasn't been through it, you haven't been through it, maybe we ought to have a couple-hour workshop where we can dice up some stuff and kind of get laid up on some things and not wait until, because the first day of budget hearings, there'll be somebody in that chair presenting their budget without much prep work on the four of us part, is what makes me think that. So.
Yeah. Would love to be able to discuss what's happened and maybe what things we'd like to see moving forward as far as that goes.
Now, your date of the 12th, what was that now?
October 12th through the 15th is
That's
the
just budget hearings
Okay.
for the week.
So I would.
And we'd like you all here for that.
I would suggest maybe the latter part of August.
If you don't have anything better to do.
So we have enough time before we get into those hearings to.
And the 9th is at 9 to get that
Yes.
morning.
Yep. Yeah.
You mind checking your schedule and see what last week of August looks like? Or if you don't have to do it now,
That should be good.
Would you gentlemen agree to that
Yeah.
idea, or? We have a quick meeting on the 24th for the CWPP stuff on fire mitigation. We need to do it after that day. We'll be here.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
That would work well for me.
Kevin's that?
That's Tuesday, the 24th.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think 1 o'clock.
That works for me.
Chairman, that work for you?
Yeah, I say that. I'm in agreement. Let's, so we've got the one mitigation meeting in the morning.
Right.
And then the finance.
BOCC finance workshop in the afternoon, 1 o'clock.
Okay, did you get that, Tina?
I sure did.
I think we would all be better off.
I think that's a good move.
Thank you.
All right, so finance focus, another goal would be working closely to support the treasurer's office, because we have to in order for this to work the way that it's going to need to. And so we're working on that currently. I think today's a good showing of that with Vernon being over there, and I'll be over there to help as well. And then beginning personnel policy revisions, and I'll speak more to that here in just a second. Continuing to sharpen current processes, I think that just kind of goes with the territory as we continue to work through AP and payroll, just continuing to get that as efficient as we possibly can, and making sure that that's easy for all parties involved. All right, so Personnel Revision Committee proposal would be the second, or would be talking about that side of things. I know at one point we had talked about handling that within a workshop, and I really don't think that's going to be sufficient for what we need to accomplish. So as I mentioned before, right now the personnel policy is lacking, and it's not exactly.
What I would suggest, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about it.
Yeah.
You as the HR
Mhm.
arm ought to have a handle on what the issues are, and you need to come and make a, put a straw man together of what you've got, what kind of modifications are necessary in discussion, so that we got something to work with first, not to let us see, and then we can schedule what you think might be appropriate. Maybe it's broken into 2 chunks, or 3, so we can really make a real good job of coming up with a county policy. And that would include, we've got several examples of how pay scales can be organized, how promotions can grade, can be accomplished there, by step increases, that kind of stuff. We need to actually have something we can look at and compare.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we're just sitting here and we're all reaching back to our old things that we remember from other jobs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And when it comes to the legal side of things, I absolutely agree that probably is mainly my voice. Aside from that, what I'd like to do is put together a committee.
That's your job.
Okay. Then that was what I was going to propose is I've already talked to departments about providing a representative. Okay. So as long as I have your blessing, I will
That's my opinion.
move forward with it.
I think that might alleviate some problems down the road if they are active partners in helping to set something up in the first place. We might do away with some problems up front.
Yeah, I agree. I think the committee's a way to go.
Okay, awesome. I'll move forward with that. I don't suspect that'll be until probably end of August after budgets are. But just so you're aware of kind of a rough timeline, the goal would be for a new policy to be provided and approved for implementation in 2022 from the beginning of the year. Good. So awesome. Thank you. Next up, just a couple of things. These are things that I've noticed just within my
Holy
role.
smokes, you got
There's a second page. Sorry. So insurance effective date. This has been an issue for some people that have come on since I've been here, in that currently the way it's worded for our health insurance is your insurance becomes effective the month after the first full month of work. So if somebody were to get hired on the 2nd of the month, they have to wait that entire month, the entire next month, and then the next month is when their health insurance comes into place.
Oh, yeah. So it's full month has to be.
It has to be a calendar month for that to happen.
Even if they're on the 15th, it'd be the 15th of the next month. Is that how it works?
It would be, so if they hired on the 15th, then they work the rest of the month, then the next is a full month, and then it's the month
For
following.
6 weeks.
So I was hired April 12th. I didn't have insurance until June 1st. So I think that's something that
Is that an insurance rule, or is that a?
Doesn't have to be.
deal, or is it our own doing?
No, it doesn't have to be. It sounds like it's our own doing. We can go in and we can make it effective the first month after hire, which is what my suggestion would be. I would just need approval for that. I think that's the right thing to do. And I also think given where politics are right now, that and the Affordable Care Act, should a fine come back in for not being insured, that could deter people in the future from not wanting to be here.
Yeah, so we need to work something. Fix it.
Yeah.
As long as it's legal.
Yep. Yeah. The insurance company said that's totally fine for us to do.
Well, I think you have consensus.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need?
Yeah, I don't know if we probably might need a motion for that, huh, Clint?
I think so, yeah.
Got a motion? You got it.
Yeah, I've moved to authorize Brady to work with the insurance company to change our effective insurance coverage policy to become effective the first of the first month after their hire.
I would second.
Okay, it's been moving second. Let's have some discussion on it. Is it possible to do it sooner than that? Why do we have to even wait 30 days? Is that a requirement?
I think that's just the administrative period that there would need to be,
They need some time to get their book squared.
and for us to be able to pay it. We would be, I guess, kind of running in arrears instead of paying on the front end.
Okay, as long as if there's, so really it's the soonest actual time, and that happens to be 30 days.
Yeah. It would be, so if somebody did, if somebody got hired mid-month, they would start the next month. with health insurance. They got it all the way up till the end of the month,
In the next month or the first of the next?
the first of the next
Two
month,
weeks.
the first of the next month. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion?
So Braden, I got a question.
Yeah.
You've had people that have started like the last week of the month. Does that still give you enough time?
So long as, I guess that's a good question. I guess it technically would have to be within the pay period. So if they're not part of the pay period, it would have to wait until the next
So
month.
maybe should the motion be as soon as possible? You need to determine what that is, what you need to work with them, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think this wording still works, that it would be eligible the first of the month. If they've paid into it, if they have received a paycheck.
If I might. So we've changed our pay period,
Mhm,
but the insurance is still calendar month.
correct.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say we ought to try this. See.
If there's a problem, we can
An
always
issue,
come back.
come back and revisit it.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'll keep you apprised. of
all
that.
right, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to ask Braden to work with the insurance companies and move our insurance to be available at the first of each month, is that right, the first of the month?
Mhm.
All in favor, say aye, Tom.
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Can I?
You okay on the motion, Kelly?
Thank you. Next one would be in regards to retirement. Currently, folks are eligible after 6 months of working here and then are automatically 20% vested. And then at the start of their 4th year, they're 100% vested within retirement. My suggestion would be that we move to them being eligible from hire, in which they can put in, the county would also put in, they would be 0% vested for the entire first year, then 20% every year addition to that. And so at the start of their 5th year, they'd be 100% vested. Reason being there, again, kind of an admin stopgap where we're having to, when somebody gets hired, wait 6 months to actually put them into the system instead of putting them all in right at once. And I think this is best on both sides because the employee gets to start contributing right from the get-go. And also better on our side, because if they leave anytime during the first year, we get all of our money back. So to me, it's a no risk and it's a benefit on both sides.
Makes sense.
I'd support that. I suspect maybe this also would require a motion. Let's change in policy.
So our policy is changing with this because you're asking for it to be immediately.
Immediate
Because of the
eligibility and then change the vesting schedule to a 5-year vesting schedule.
Okay, I'll make that motion. I move that we change the vesting schedule to be when they're first hired to be eligible.
Isn't that require a change in the personnel policy as well? And isn't that set forth in our personnel policy?
It is in there.
Okay, so.
So that'll be something to bring up.
I
when
think
we
the
change.
insurance thing is too, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
I think they're both.
Yeah, they're both there.
So we could do an addendum to the,
We have to do that. That's really a function of the CIC. It's have to do because that impacts both.
Mhm.
Maybe we can vote to do these and then vote to amend the personnel policy, huh?
Immediately to amend that.
Yeah, you can
Just so
change
that
that now and then just
we
put it back
fix it
on the
later.
agenda to amend the personnel policy.
Yeah.
Reflect these changes you've approved.
So restate that so Kelly can write it correctly. So
it would be that if employees are eligible for retirement at the date of hire and then would follow a 5-year vesting schedule.
okay, so I move that the employees are eligible at the date of hire for retirement and that they will actually work a 5-year schedule to become fully vested.
And it probably should say eligible for contribution from the date of hire.
Right. eligible for contribution, but they can still.
eligible for contribution and match. And because technically anybody can contribute on the 457 side anytime they'd like, but the 401A side that we would match, that we require,
Right.
that would be from the get-go. And then there'd be no change in paycheck halfway through the year either for those folks. So
That makes sense.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. I hate to restate it, to read what you have, Kelly.
So what I have is motion that the employee will they'll be able to contribute and get their matching upon hire. And then they are 20% on the first year, 20%
5
after,
years,
up to fully vested at 5 years.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom?
All right,
Canned aye.
and then can we put on the agenda for the
Mid-month
mid-month to amend the personnel policy?
to review or reflect the last 2 changes to the personnel. Okay.
great. All right, quick report in regards to monthly department meeting agenda. Here's just an example of what we're going through this month. Try to keep you informed as to what that looks like as well. But really, this is just a time for us to touch base and make sure that things are going efficiently, that they're getting ready for anything that might be coming up, such as budgets, updating them on any questions that they had from last time, just progress on those or when we've accomplished whatever it is that they've had questions on. And so right now, it's really just getting a baseline this month of making sure that salaries are correct in the system, as well as leave accruals and different things like that. So that way we're back to a good baseline and know that that the conversion is totally complete and accurate compared with everyone's records. So next would be audit review. Just again, we're having that on September 7th. I'll have a meeting with Sam prior to that. That will be a little bit more in depth in your all's audit review. So that's
You've
happening.
been involving Sam in these meetings with CIC.
We have had, when Sam was here and CIC was here, we did discuss some things. Yes,
Would it be useful for him to sit in on one of those again or not?
he will, when we get together, especially now that I have a better handle on how things are working. Yeah, we will talk through what next year needs to look like. That's what he's wanting to do, is not only give me an idea of what this audit review looks like ahead of time, but also have the time to figure out what next year is going to look like with the conversion and making sure that we're doing that efficiently, because that has the potential to not be efficient. So we'll, that's what that looks like. Last thing is something that came up yesterday. I had a department head that asked what comp time looked like, how to report comp time usage to my office, because they're getting ready to go on a vacation and they don't have any vacation time. And from what I see, there's not a consistency across the board on how that's handled. And totally transparently, this is a conversation that I had with Kevin earlier in regards to me, that I will be taking some time off this month. And what that looks like, whether the time that I've worked over is something that could be applied to that vacation time to not be short a paycheck, or if that's something that I just need to take the hit on. And so we had discussed that and had come to an agreement on that. But with the information that I received yesterday, it sounds like that's not consistent across the board. And so I just wanted to make sure for my office specifically how we should be handling that. Because the way that I read the personnel policy, comp time is approved by by the department head or the elected official. And then from there can be used as needed, as approved, I suppose. So I've got it here, but so anyway, I wanted to throw that out there and see how my office should be.
Well, in the big picture, that's a new personnel plan that we go later.
Right.
For now, you're trying to be consistent with what we have.
What we have, page 16.
Well, it's in there now, whether it's.
So currently, I can read that here. So compensatory time, an employee may under Federal Labor Standards Act accrue a maximum of 240 hours of comp time, 480 hours if an applicable law enforcement position. Any accrual of comp time or overpaid time must be approved by their appropriate elected official or department head and or their designee. It is intended that employees who have earned comp time off will be granted use of that time as soon as practical after the time's accumulation. Some departments have internal policies which pay down any comp time in excess of 80 hours quarterly. Comp time will also be paid out upon termination. Such payment will be made from the appropriate department budget.
That's pretty clear to me.
So it would just be, so for example, for a department head, who would approve that comp time? Would that
For
be
that department head itself,
for that department head?
that's an elected official.
Is that a board decision or is that a point of contact decision?
It's a point of contact.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's a board decision myself, but I have I think a more pointed question. Is comp time, I'll look to Kelly, is comp time for exempt and non-exempt employees?
Well, remember, we kind of hashed this over and over the last time we did the personnel policy. And I think, I don't really remember what we decided now, like with Peggy, Peggy's a salaried employee, but during election time, she puts anywhere from 40 to 60 hours extra in above her 8 hours a day. And I'm not going to just not let her,
And you
Be
historically
compensated
have gone
for
to
that.
that
And
instead of
so-
paying overtime.
I put it as comp time.
Yeah, that's why I said, that's why I believe that it's due to that department head to make that decision. And it's legal. I think it's fine. And then not to pay it down necessarily, but to do what you think is right for your people. That has gone above and beyond. And if they don't get it during the year, that's too late. That's the way in my experience.
And I was thinking that we talked about does it say anything in there, Braden, about that you have to work over 40 hours or, because there was
4 hours
something-
or something. wasn't it?
because
Yeah.
I think that's our policy. That
since
wasn't in the.
technically we, everybody mostly only works 35 hours.
Mhm.
If they work at, like in my office, if we're there till 4:30, they're not gonna get that as
Right.
comp time because they really haven't worked a 40-hour week.
Sure.
It's not addressed under comp time.
Yeah, it isn't. I know we talked about it, but
Yeah. I think
it just
that's,
has to be something that has to be cleaned up when they do that.
Right.
and I think you're right.
Kevin, you got a question?
I might speak on it in regards to our conversation, and I was unclear exactly what our policy works as well when I spoke with Braden. I know that there has been times, I think, the previous road and bridge boss was actually allowed to accrue comp time, although that I was under the impression that it was more for the hourly employees. But that's what I based my opinion on when I spoke with Braden. But I told him, I'm not sure. I said, the best policy for you would be to bring it to all of us because you're just getting one man's opinion here. And I did not, when I spoke with Braden, I did not want to set precedents that would come back and be very detrimental to us. And so I wanted to make sure that we were all on board and that we all were coming from the same angle on this, because I did not want to make that call and have that come back to bite us.
Okay, the example, let me say something about that. The example you use is a little bit different because the road and bridge guys work for us anyway. But if you look at the big picture, if a salaried employee breaks his neck working overtime and works 24 hours a day, every day, where do you draw the line? And so a boss, has to recognize that one of his, like in your case, you got a salaried employee that's working overtime. You can't expect that to happen without giving some relief for that extra work. And you know that that's your job to make sure that that's extra work, not something that they're staying because they're going to want to accrue time and they're just not getting their work done in an 8-hour day. And so they're trying to, they spend the weekend working and want comp time. That's the discretion of the elected official or the person that's in charge. And so the abuses can be found. I mean, that's easy to see, I think, by that person. The elected officials all work for not us. They work for the taxpayer. Our issue as commissioners would be, is that department doing the job that they're elected to do? We are responsible for the execution of the mission of the entire county. And we've got to make sure they have the ability to execute their operations wisely and safely and all that. So then it would become an issue with us if Peggy was working overtime all the time and good grief, what's going on. We certainly would be aware of that. And that's why we have reports. So that's why, you can't make a rule that it handles every situation. Sure. If you have to have that.
Well, then I think we have we also have department heads on top of that who are all salaried that answer directly to us.
That's
so
correct.
that comes to us each and every time for that. And so that is something I think, so it's not just Kelly's office.
We were using that. You're right.
But
could be
your department heads, we've hired them as a X amount of salary.
right. Good point.
So now in a case where someone needs to have 8 or 10 days off and they haven't accrued any of the vacation time, they've put in a lot of extra hours up to this point. Is that something we're going to dock them for or not?
That would be a call I would make and say,
So,
yeah, you deserve some time. And they would have to show that time off is not going to impact the mission or what's going on in their group, and they could take it a little later date. But that's something we would have to have a discussion.
So I guess my question would be, is that a point of contact decision, or is that a Board of County Commissioners decision in those regards, in those cases?
Different in some cases
But specifically for department heads, like
that work.
Well,
for
the
us.
department heads answer to the commissioners. They don't answer to the point of contact.
That's right.
That's why I believe it should be commissioners.
And in those cases that they did.
And we actually discussed department heads. I don't know if you remember when, and this is going to sound like I'm against you.
You're
I'm
fine.
not.
I'm
Department heads that were salaried, we pretty much just said, suck it up. And that's if you're working extra hours, you're working extra hours. But that's just what we talked about then.
That's, if that's not the mentality, then what's the difference? Right.
And I think a lot of that discussion came up with Gary, because Gary worked a lot and they didn't give him comp hours. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And answer your question, Kelly, in 409.3, overtime pay versus comp time, it does say that for non-exempt employees, comp time off in lieu of compensation for hours worked in excess of 40 hours. So it does say
So
that.
that
It's just not in 4094.
Yeah.
It's in 4093. So yeah, that's tough. There's no doubt about it. We've been down this road with not a department, well, she was a department head and
That worked for us.
and went put in a lot of hours without the commissioner's approval
Mhm.
and then turned around and wanted those comp time off. I don't know that we need to approve extra hours, but I do think we need to approve comp time for the department heads that answer to the commissioner.
Correct.
And I'm just for the record, trying to keep this separate because I have had somebody that's come and asked me
Okay.
what to do and what I should be doing logistically.
So now you have enough info for now until we have reworked the policy.
I guess the only other thing would be, does that decision need to be made ahead of time or after the fact?
I think it needs to be done ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how that takes
yeah,
place.
to your situation, it'll sound like favoritism, doesn't matter, in my opinion, who's sitting here as a department head. If we had a brand new department head that needed time off, can we make that decision? And this, it says in here that the county, let me read that real quick. Now, they'll find it. There's a statement in there that says the county can make decisions based on what's good for the county and good for the employee.
Yeah,
Basically, I'm
That's
paraphrasing.
a good point. I have the same opinion. A brand new employee has an emergency and some death in the family, we can grant that employee time off and actually get that back pay, the leave that was we could do it two ways. You can have them get it later, or we can say it's for the best and let it go. That would probably be a case where we'd have them accrue it later and balance it out. If that person's gone above and beyond, we have the ability also to do exactly what we can do. And what you're suggesting is if that, and you've exhibited that, you've done overtime working on this transition and you got to go for how many days? Looks like 9 days.
I don't know.
I say you can go for 5, non-counties.
Yep.
But yeah, that would be a call that we make it.
Yeah, and there's a policy for bereavement. I know you were using that as an example, but it's different.
It's different.
Um,
Could be some other emergency that they gotta go for.
Yeah.
Or a reason to go. That you didn't have enough comp time built in a job that you were doing overtime for some reason. Anyway,
Yeah, how many hours of comp time do you have?
I would need to recalculate that to the 40 number.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so I
probably have quite a bit.
would have to check with what that's.
So we can work that
up to.
out of here, but that's, if you're good with what we've discussed and how we're gonna do it.
Okay. So is there any action or as far as, for me specifically concerned, is it okay to do that?
Go ahead, you gotta tell us what you're reworking it to the 40, and then you gotta let us know, all right, given on that, I'm gonna need X, whatever.
Okay.
That's
But we
fine.
don't meet again until,
Yeah, and you just told him we have to make that decision beforehand.
Well,
So that would be.
I can come back in just
that's
a
what I
few
mean.
minutes.
He
I
has to
wouldn't
say
say
the
very much
assumption.
time.
I don't know how many.
Yeah.
then I wonder in a case-by-case situation, if we could make a decision and then use forward comp time to make up the
Yeah, you could.
difference.
You could do. So what I would suggest, you have a point of contact, commissioner.
Mhm.
That commissioner, once you work it, we'll get that and we can take that to all three if that's necessary or not.
Okay.
If it turns out that way, in each case, that's
Okay.
a good way to handle it.
I don't think it's something that we would end up addressing on a real regular basis. I mean, the only time this happens is when you have a new employee that's probably already got a vacation scheduled.
Sure.
Yeah,
And the only time it really affects us is if it's a department head.
right. Or our employee,
Yes.
which has happened the
Yeah,
last
we've
3
had
times
many
we've had
department
new
head.
employees.
Yeah, they came on stating that they had something already.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's not like we would probably be meeting on something like this because it would fall to the department heads to take care of their own department as a rule. So I think, personally speaking, I would be supportive of it.
Yeah, I think from a high altitude look, then we need to take a serious look at exempt and non-exempt employees. Is this going to be limited only to department heads or to any employee? And if we're going to allow it to any employee, then why have exempt and non-exempt?
so that's something to discuss when we get into the big pictures now. Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
is that all you had?
Yep, that will, and I'll pass that information on to folks that have asked about it.
Okay, you did a good job of staying tight and we're on schedule.
Awesome.
And you've done a good job of doing other things. I hate to say that. It's true.
I tied my shoes this morning. So,
Will you recalculate based on the 40? Could you text us?
yeah, I'll do that right now.
Or shoot an email.
Any other,
That's something that we need to have we would make a formal decision on that, correct?
I think so.
We can talk when we get it, we'll do it.
any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon.
You all too. See
Coming in.
you later.
Very helpful.
See you later. I'll get that ahead of time next time.
All right, Mr. OEM, you're up.
You might explain why we're not having a treasurer's report.
Oh, I will. I intend to do that as soon as he gets in here.
Oh.
All right, yeah, we've got treasurer and the IT are both tied up, as you heard, with the finance issue that's going on. Vernon did tell me. Vernon did say that he didn't have much to report anyways, doing normal IT stuff, fixing things, and spent a lot of time on this transition break discussing. And they are working right now with the treasurer. That's why we're skipping ahead.
Were you made aware that we weren't going to have treasurer and IT? Or did you just come?
I listened.
Okay. But I mean, before the meeting?
That came up as the meeting started. Vernon was in here as we discussed. And Tina, you were on the phone, weren't you?
Diligently doing Tina stuff.
All right,
Good morning.
go ahead. Door is yours.
So as Braden was talking, I was just reflecting on some of the things that he was saying and approaching anniversary dates. It's almost been a year in the position. And I think one of the documents that you have before you, the CEPA assessment, is reflective of, I think, the progress that I've made as the OEM for the county. But I want to say that nothing that I do in my department can be done as an island. Everything I have to do is in cooperation and working with other people. And I think the fact that we're number 13 on the state list for completing our CEPA assessment is very reflective of the management and the team we have here in Custer County. And so I'd like to just briefly talk about the CEPA report. You have a letter from Director Willis of the Colorado Division of Homeland Security Emergency Management. And I'll just read what he says. Congratulations to Custer County for completing its first Colorado Emergency Preparedness Assessment. Your team effort and willingness to complete the assessment process is indicative of the county's commitment to continually improving emergency preparedness. The CEPA is designed to help your county assess risks and capabilities, identify resource gaps, and understand grant reliance. Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management believes that the detailed analysis your county completed can be a foundation for building and sustaining your emergency management program and preparedness efforts. I just want to say that I used this assessment to assess where my department is, where we need to improve, where we can improve, what grants we need to be applying for. And I think it's really reflective of what we do here in Custer County. And the executive summary is a 2-page summary that's attached behind the letter. I would just encourage you to take a look at that. You may want to have a copy of the more comprehensive report as you are doing so, but I know that most of you participated in the process, and I think it accurately reflects where we need to improve, the areas where we need to improve. You notice that improving communications was one of those elements, and having training and exercise programs. And this past month, we completed our first comprehensive training and exercise tabletop. And we've already done a lot to address where we are in terms of our communication capabilities. And I think within the next 3 weeks, all of the departments, both within the county and outside of the county, our fire protection districts, will have their communications at a level that meets the standards identified in this report. On page 2 of the summary, you see a statement that says our anticipated resource needs. We are working on the wildfire air support annual operating plan. You see special weapons and tactics. Terrorism is something that we are looking at. Even though we're a rural county, we can't ignore that fact. We addressed animal transportation. We are currently writing a animal evacuation and transportation plan for both large livestock and small livestock. And we're doing that in conjunction with CSUC Fort Collins. Economic recovery, the monies that we receive fall in the category of economic recovery. And the Emergency Management Office is tasked with not overseeing, but coordinating economic recovery. So that is a function that emergency management has, so that the community can recover from the COVID environment that we've been under here for the last year and a half or so. We are addressing our public information warning system response. Our tabletop exercise addressed our environmental response and health and safety concerns. If you put chemicals into waterways, we are looking at fatality management. I mean, we aren't so concerned, and you look at the capabilities, we're not concerned in the county about a mass casualty event, but we know that at any time, any county in the state could have a terrorist act that would result in a lot of mass casualties. In the report, you see their specialized communities. I just want to note that we are aware that we have within Custer County specialized communities. The Amish community would be a specialized community. They have specific needs based on their religious foundation. We want to respect those needs, but I have spoke with members of the Amish community so that we can make certain that in an emergency, we will be able to reach out to the community and get them the information that they can need. And so we're writing a specific plan for that. So that is.
Okay, before you go any further,
Go ahead.
can I get a couple? And I want to hammer at that point. You said we're ranked 13. Where is that?
No, we were the 13th county to go through a SEPA assessment.
The 13th county this year.
This process just started. So we were the 13th county. Yes.
So, and we've gone through the entire assessment.
Yes.
Also, something that you brought up is very important to hammer home. Terrorism is an issue, and in a small county, even though it's not a mass casualty, everybody thinks it's going to be another tower thing in a city. To see things happen in rural counties would be just about as catastrophic, because that would show terrorism at an infiltrated level that would be very, very that. So it's important that you guys are engaged, and it looks like you are.
And for our events coming up in September, like our community mill gathering event, you know, we're going to have a team come in and just assess that to make certain that we've done everything we need to do to make certain that something couldn't happen for that particular event. So we are trying to address those concerns. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And so you have that report. If you have any questions, comments, or amendments to what you see there, please let me know. This is a 3-year process, so we will go through this process again in 2025 to assess where we are, what improvements we've made, and what improvements we still need to make.
Tom, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the second page is these numbers, is that a regional reflection? I mean, obviously, we don't have 10,000 people that live in Custer County. And we don't have 11 college universities and schools. So does this represent?
I would say
I
that,
tried to glance through that. I'm not sure.
I would say that the population figure is not correct.
Well, it could be, because I've heard 10,000 tossed around. If you look at the voter rolls, it's 5,000 or whatever it is. And the people that are affected in this county in the summertime are in the 10,000 range. That's what I understand because of tourism and part-time people coming up here that aren't voters. Maybe we need to clarify what that is.
And I'll clarify that, but I agree with both assessments. I think at any particular time, like 4th of July weekend, if you actually looked at the population of the county probably doubled.
At that, there were 10,000 people on the street for the parade. Now, it was really packed.
You know, and so, but I will check that. That could have been an
What does
oversight.
localities mean where you show an 8 there? I just don't understand if this is representing our county.
I believe that those localities represent the various
Clusters of
agencies within the county, and it also represents Wetmore, San Isabel,
hillside.
the various regions in the county, but I'll verify that. I'll verify that one
We
as
don't
well.
have 11 fire departments either.
I just
And where do
Fire
we,
departments, volunteer.
Targeted
fire
housing. We don't
departments.
have-
Yeah, that's 0, but what's 11?
yeah, I'm not certain what happened.
So
on
we could just
this.
look into that.
Yeah,
top
I will look
portion of that
at
graph.
those summaries and we'll get that corrected.
You know, I guess it depends
We do
on
not.
how DHSEM defines population. I mean, it's population of counties of people that live there, not people. But,
Part-time homes.
All good comments, and we'll take a look at it. We'll look at those. Did you see anything else on that?
when I look at that graph on the capability assessment, I haven't added those up, but I think it's reflective that we rank overall, and I'm surprised this is not in here, an overall ranking of our capability assessment is like a 2.5 out of a scale of 1 to 5. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would not use the scale of 1 to 5 because you can score a 5 and not be, you know, shining like you might think you're shining. I think it's a more reflection that we have some work to do, perhaps in planning, but we may not ever be a 5
Right,
in those
but the
capabilities.
scale is 1 to 5.
This-
That's what I was basing that off.
Yeah, the scale is 1 to 5.
Whether we ever reach 5 or not.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
but it
that's-
looks like right now we're about 2.5 on average for the whole assessment, so.
But what they encourage us to do is to not look at that 2.5 as like in a 2.5 would be like a C+ average in school. They don't want us to look at that because there are some of these capabilities that we will never have. We will never have in this small county, for example, a search and rescue team. I'm not a search and rescue team, but a hazmat team or a SWAT team or something like that. So yes, it gives you a point of reference, but I like to look at it as like, let's take the lowest score on here, 2.3. it's not that we're not trained, but I think that we can enhance the training that we do have so that we're better to do the things that we need to do. So
What does POETE breakdown mean?
I knew you were going to ask that. I should have.
Poetic score,
Yeah, the poetic score. You were in
What
the
is a
assessment.
poetic? It doesn't even describe.
planning, organization,
Organization,
equipment,
equipment,
training, and
and
exercise.
exercise
Score
score.
right there under
Yes, there it
in
is.
those scores.
And so it's okay, and that's what they use. And it's terminology. Would you guys have known what poetic was? So there's just a lot of terminology that we came up to speed on this, but it's common terminology. We try to pull out all the acronyms out of this and explain them.
Okay, I just wanted to make
So-
sure, because that, what you're trying to say and how that's weighted doesn't necessarily mean that's a C plus. It's just, it's how they
Well,
exercise.
A 2.9 could be an excellent score depending on what your capabilities are. So it's an interesting process, but I think we all
Okay.
learned a lot. Kevin, you sat through most of it. What did you think?
Yeah,
Tom,
it's
a lot too.
it's a lot to go through
Got through part of it.
in that short order of time.
I think
I think at times there was not a need for everybody to be as involved as we might have been. It might have fallen more to some of the first responders more, but that being said, situation happens. Us three here are intimately involved in it in this county, so we needed to be there as well. So,
yeah. So it was a learning thing, I think. Officially, we were number 14 because no one wanted to be number 13, but still came out okay. It came out okay. So, but that's the assessment, and that's our score, and it gives me kind of a game plan for the next 2 years to kind of
What to focus on.
to focus on. So I think it would be good that, when we're setting goals and things, if we use this kind of as a template to set them goals, or if you think I'm fishing around in places I ought not be, I can refer to this and say, well, this identified that as a need. And so it'll be kind of a guide that I will reflect to as the emergency manager. And all 64 counties will complete this process within the next 18 months. And so SEPA.
Excuse me, if I may interrupt, Adrian, this is Reggie, the PIO.
Yes.
I thought the exercise highlighted the relationships that you have helped develop with our neighboring counties. And I thought it was great to see the way everyone came together to share resources and ideas.
Thank you, Reggie.
and in response to you, Tom, if you will go to your big packet, page number 2 gives you your accurate information for Custer County.
Yes.
Big packet.
Yeah, it's on page 2 of, here, I'll pass that one. You look on page 2.
Shouldn't have a big packet.
How'd you get it?
I don't know.
And I want to, and I may have printed off, because I know that we corrected that before. And so I may have printed off the executive summary that was originally submitted, not the one that we corrected. So I believe that
Yeah, those
I have
numbers are a
those.
little more palatable to me.
Yeah,
Square mileage.
yeah. And I believe that we did correct those numbers with another executive summary.
The fire department's 2 in this case,
Yeah, and that is correct.
on the very first page.
Good, thank you.
In the world where we cut and paste, sometimes cutting and paste can
Gave
give
us
us
credit for Grant County. Or something.
Well,
We just studied Grant here.
Yeah, I believe that has been correct, and I will check that and get you the correct executive summary. You have my report, as I promised you last week when we had a little computer glitch. You have the information now for both June and July. As I go through the report, I just want to highlight in the June, July portion of the report, the grant report, that We have accumulated year to date about $16,369 of reimbursable expenses for OEM that the state will pay out probably in August, September. I remember when I came on, the first check for last year came out in September. So we'll be able to put 16,369 back into the revenue portion of the county budget to reimburse us for the expenses that we had. And that's on the EMPG grant. We also will be reimbursed the $1,485 under line item 5 there, 218 Homeland Security grant reimbursement. We'll get reimbursed for that. Just want to point out that our application for the OEM vehicle replacement with the USDA, the application is still in the pike, even though we were not funded in fiscal year 2021. So he will put our application in for fiscal year 2022, which begins October 1st. And so we still have the vaccination payroll item of 16,563.63. And I wrote that we'll submit a reimbursement utilizing the American Rescue Plan to the committee when that committee gets formed to see if we can recover that expense. And that was the expense related to the vaccination program in the months of February, March. It's January, February, and March of this year. In process of recruiting last night at the event, a lot of folks came up to me and thanked me for what we are doing in emergency management. And they asked what they could do to help. And I said, well, I need some more volunteers. So I'm actively recruiting 4 new OEM volunteers, and that will put us in a position, should we have an emergency, to be able to get our EOC activated promptly. I'll go back to the special note above. If you just go through the various items, I would ask, do you have any questions about any of the dates? If you have a question, if you tell me the specific date you have questions about, I will do that. I'll just point out, if you wonder what a guardian angel device that we purchased for all of our deputies and posse members, it looks sort of like this. Have you guys seen that? And so if you're wondering what a guardian angel device is, we had a concern that even though a lot of police officers, people in law enforcement, lose their lives because of gunshots, a larger number of first responders are injured because people hit them when they're on an incident. And so we had a person in our community contact me and asked if there was something that they could buy for our first responders that would protect them in the line of the jobs that we perform. And so they came, we decided on these particular devices, and I'll just run through it real quick, but you can see that this device makes our first responders visible for long distances. And he said that if purchasing one of these devices saved one life, then the expense of buying these would be well worth it. State Patrol has them for all the responders, for all the CHP members, and now all of our law enforcement people and have the same device. So that's what a guardian angel.
So you're saying an individual donated the money for
He
those?
provided the money and purchased them, and they have now been distributed.
He purchased them or you did?
He purchased them for the county. And Shannon's office is writing a very nice thank you letter where all of us will sign it and present it to
The fire department too.
We will look at trying to get it for the fire department next. We took care of the folks in law enforcement first, and then we'll look at trying to get those for all of our primary first responders.
From the same guy or from the county?
Well, I'm not going to say that. I like to plant seeds, so I'll put it in somebody's heart.
Okay.
The units are not cheap.
I thought maybe that was the plan initially, and that's the next step with the same.
Well, I mean, there are grants available that we might be able to look at that.
Okay.
But I think if it saves one person from being hit, then it's worth it.
Was this an anonymous donation?
I'm gonna leave it as anonymous at this point in time. Shannon does have the name of the end. I'll tell you, his name is Matthew Cole Collins. And so,
Very nice.
and the cost of the units was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000. So it was a nice contribution.
Be worth us to send a note of thanks to.
Yeah, it would be a nice thing to do. And so lots of dates there. Sometimes, well, my wife doesn't like it because I'm so busy most of the time, but I'm amazed at the things that you get involved in as an emergency manager. One of our primary concerns this year, I think we're like maybe at 170% of normal in terms of our rainfall, is the amount of rainfall that we have. In my report, I think I've mentioned, but we are participating in a flood study right now in Custer County. Actually, all the counties in the state are being assessed for our ability to respond and react to flooding. And so we're participating in a CWCB. I'm gonna have to look at what that acronym means, but basically it's a risk assessment mapping program where they based out of Denver, and they are looking at every county in the state to see how a flood or a flash flood would affect the county. On, I believe it's on the 22nd of July. We had a major flooding event in the county, and then again on the 20, what was Sunday? Was it 25th? Yeah, it was on the 25th of July that we had another mass flooding event. You guys remember the text I sent out, County Road 265 and County Road 271 sustained substantial damage. The initial estimates are somewhere in the neighborhood of about $110,000 damage to those roads. Been monitoring the news. The High 70 corridor is still closed because of debris slides resulting from flash floods in that area. And in order, we want to monitor these floods and make sure we document the costs associated with any flooding, because there is a ceiling of $7.2 million statewide that must be met before we can apply for FEMA reimbursement. And so I believe that the costs associated with the I-70 closures, and when you look at the entire state, if we do our documentation correct, we may be able to get some of those funds back through FEMA. But they're going to require pictures, documentation of time, and the efforts required. So I would just encourage us as a community and as the county to monitor what's going on in other counties, because once we hit that $7.2 million ceiling, we may be able to get some of those funds reimbursed through FEMA grants. The last item I really have is the note on the very last page of my report. And it, when we approve projects, we also have to remember to put money into the expense portion of the budget. And so I wrote that I would like to, with your approval, request a supplementary budget to move funds from the revenue portion of the county financial budget into the OEM budget to cover the expenses approved by the Board of County Commissioners when we awarded Synergy Disaster Recovery, the contract to revise our hazard mitigation plan for the county and the two cities. I just put as a note that the revision was approved by the BOCC in 2019, 12/31, and a contract was awarded to Synergy Disaster Recovery in May of 2021 and signed by both parties in June of 2021. What I failed to do, and I'll take responsibility for it, but this is how you learn. What I failed to include in that approval request was the transfer of funds from the revenue side of the budget into the expense side of the budget. And I just wrote in my notes, you can't write a check for money that's not in the account. And so in order to be able to pay them for the work they do, which is reimbursable, we have to put the revenue into the budget so that I can write the checks, because we have to write the checks first before the state will reimburse us.
And it's reimbursable through your HNP grant.
Yes, it is. It's reimbursable to the grant.
And you worked this with Braden already.
We've discussed it, but being that both of us are relatively new in terms of understanding county finances, I looked in the hazard mitigation portion of the revenue budget, and there is 36,000 because I thought, so the money, I believe, and I have to verify it, the money is there in the budget for this. And then if that 36,000 then is not moved, but put into my budget, then I am charging against that budget. And then I submit that charge to the state.
I don't know in the past, in the old system, that was done by the finance, and they moved it when the invoice came. So what's different now? What is that Braden at?
In the past, we've always had that money in the budget.
Well, it's there now. I mean,
But
money
in the-
exists, it's in a different line.
It's in the revenue side, but it's not
I
in
get
the
it,
expense
but we
side.
never had a supplementary budget request to do that in the past.
I think it was just automatically done. If you go to,
Well, that's my point, is automatically done is what? We've never had a supplementary
I
budget.
think Don always used to do it, it's like a
Right.
resolution.
That's exactly it.
okay, so
So whatever it means, we need to get that process. We gotta move it.
I'm not, so yes, we have to move it because I am incurring expenses, but I'll just step back and say that I do not know, Kelly, you'll have to help me, how we need to do that.
I'll get Braden a copy of one of the past resolutions that we've done.
Right.
And so do we wait another month or can we bring
That
that?
can be done in the middle.
Okay,
Just gotta go get it.
okay, so you'll help me on that, Kelly, then, and then we'll get a resolution to put
I'll
that.
figure out how to put it.
Yeah, and then in that, we are in the process of about to award a contract using the PI health money. And so we need to do a similar resolution to be able to move those funds into wherever we want to move them so that we can make payments on that contract when we award it.
Sure.
Also.
So we haven't, I don't know if we received that yet.
You received some PELT dollars in fiscal year 2020.
Right.
And I think the balance amount roughly it jumped up to 80, but we spent 32. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 on that. So
All right, we'll stay tuned.
we'll stay tuned. So I'll work with Kelly. We'll get you a draft resolution to be able to do that, and then we can move forward. And I believe that's all that I have for you, unless you have some questions.
Tom? Kevin?
I don't believe so, no.
Thanks.
I'm going to slip silently out. Thank you, Tom. Yeah,
Are
thank
you
you.
gonna be around? Because I want to see you after.
I will be around. I'm going to sit in here for the next. Jackie's on hot seat.
Adrian,
Yes.
I'm never on the hot seat.
Yes.
I'm going to take 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
suggest that.
control them.
Oh.
They control me. Anyway,
Okay, before we go on, we'll take a 5-minute recess. Let's start, well, in 7 minutes. Let's start at 10 till the hour. So we'll take a quick recess. Okay, we're back from recess. It's 7 minutes to 11 now. And we will resume the meeting. We just took a quick break and we'll do it as we progress here. And we're going to move into unfinished business as our next agenda item. I don't have anything, Kevin.
None here, sir.
Huh? All right, so we are able to go into our new business items. I'll let everybody know that we'll have public comment on this on either item we'll be voting on. And we'll allow public comments if required, if necessary. So before we do that, though, there are some people that we need to make sure Kelly's got that weren't introduced at the front of the meeting. Back in the back, who's in the back?
Jackie Hobby, planning and
All
zoning.
right. We got John Decker here. You got that? We got Miles, and is there somebody else back there?
I don't think so.
All right, anybody online? Okay, so we'll give you plenty of opportunity. So our first item up is consideration of resolution 2109 for administrative modifications to Westcliff Meets SUP. Just to set the stage, and then I'm going to ask Clint to go through the modification. This was brought up some time ago on the request for the SUP back. I'm not going to go into the dates. And then we had a long meeting shortly after the SUP that we had that limited the groceries that they had requested to be considered. And we had a long meeting in the workshop, basically in the courtroom. Was it a regular meeting? I think it was a regular meeting. Everybody attended and came up with what we're currently working now, and that's the administrative modifications to the SUP. We had a quick discussion on that on our last meeting, and that resulted in a couple of changes that could be made or should be made that Clint took a hold of and modified the administrative modifications. And the big modification was to make sure the title was clear to Westcliff Meets, the name is correct, and as well as the understanding what the SUP is, so that there's no ambiguities. So with that, Clint, would you talk through the your suggested changes that we would consider on this? And why don't you read each item as you go through?
I mean, read it word.
Yes, we read it word for word, so because nobody has seen it, it's public record, so it's a resolution of Custer County.
But I also would like to kind of explain as I go.
That's exactly what I want.
So this is Custer County Resolution number 21-09. A resolution of Custer County, a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, making certain administrative clarifications to the special use permit for the business known as Westcliff Meats. And here I want to add that this was on the agenda at our July 30 meeting. And it was discussed, and at that time I had used the word modifications. And if you look in the zoning resolution, any modifications of the special use permit need to go through the planning commission. So I changed modifications to administrative clarifications, which I believe the board has the authority to do if the original special use permit was ambiguous. And I would note that Aaron Kemp, who's it's like a power of attorney designated. What's the title that you have, the paperwork you have, Aaron, from Henry Miller?
What's your time?
Act on behalf of, it's like a power of attorney. Designation of authority or something like that. But it's I've looked at the document. It's a legal document that gives Aaron Kemp full legal authority to act on behalf of Henry Miller, the property owner. And Aaron was here, and Montana Canterbury was also here last time. We talked about all this at some length. Whereas on August 5, 2014, the Board of County Commissioners for Custer County approved a special use permit to the provisions of the Custer County zoning, pursuant to the provisions of the Custer County zoning resolution for Henry W. Miller to operate a meat processing facility known as Westcliff Meats at 1358 County Road 140 in the unincorporated area of Custer County. And whereas the current Board of County Commissioners has concluded that there are some ambiguities with the 2014 special use permit that need to be addressed. And whereas the original 2014 special use permit simply says that Westcliff Meats shall comply with all federal, state, and local regulations without further elaboration or guidance. And whereas meat processing facilities in the state of Colorado are primarily regulated by state law, not by the federal government or by local government. And whereas in the state of Colorado, a meat processing facility is required to be licensed by the Colorado Department of Agriculture. And whereas Westcliff Meats is so licensed pursuant to Article 33 of Title 35 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. And whereas Section 35-33-103, paren 11, CRS defines a meat processing facility as any establishment where meat is slaughtered, dressed, processed, cut, trimmed, wrapped, or packaged for delivery to consumers. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners does not have the statutory authority to relax any state regulations regarding meat processing facilities, but it does have the authority to impose more restrictive regulations on a meat processing facility as a condition of approving a special use permit in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Custer County. And whereas the license issued to Westcliff Meats by the Colorado Department of Agriculture to operate a meat processing facility allowed said business to operate as a retail food establishment with a grocery store, which goes beyond what was intended when the original special use permit was issued in 2014. And whereas the owner of Westcliff Meats, Henry W. Miller, by and through his authorized representative and agent, Aaron Kemp, has acknowledged that when the original special use permit was applied for and was approved in 2014, it was not the intent of the business to operate a retail grocery store under the parameters of said permit. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners and Westcliff Meats have mutually agreed in a public meeting held on July 30, 2021, that the special use permit now in effect should be clarified to expressly prohibit Westcliff Meats from operating a retail grocery store, but that Westcliff Meats should, as a condition of its permit, be granted the right to process and sell boxed meats to retail consumers from its facility at the address set forth above. And whereas for purposes of this resolution number 21-09, the Board of County Commissioners and Westcliff Meats have agreed that boxed meats shall be defined as meat that has been slaughtered elsewhere and then shipped to Westcliff Meats for further processing and packaging before being offered for sale to retail consumers. And whereas the definition of meats as set forth in section 35-31, there should be a dash there.
31 dash.
Actually, it should be 35-33-103. It's a typo on my part. Subparagraphs 8 and 8.5 CRS is hereby incorporated into this resolution. That's the statutory definition of meats, which also includes a definition of poultry, which is considered meats under the definitions in that statute. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners that the special use permit issued to Westcliff Meats on August 5, 2014 shall be clarified by incorporating this resolution number 21-09 into said permit as an express condition thereof. Westcliff Meats shall be granted the right as a meat processing facility to process and sell boxed meat to retail consumers because such activity is encompassed by the license issued to Westcliff Meats by the Colorado Department of Agriculture. but other activities allowed by said license, including but not limited to operating a retail grocery establishment, are not so granted by the Board of County Commissioners. And then approved and adopted the 4th day of August 2021, and signatures for the commissioners if this is approved. And I asked that Mr. Kemp be here particularly to again have him state on the record that this is a correct statement of what the original intent was when the special use permit was issued back in 2014, that it was not contemplated it was going to include operating a grocery store, and that he's confirmed this with Henry Miller, and that on behalf of Henry Miller, he's in agreement with the language of this proposed resolution.
Okay, so for the record, we'll start off with that statement. Aaron, are you prepared to make that statement?
I think so. So yeah, it was never intended to be a grocery store to slaughter and process meats and then sell retail, as it states in the resolution.
And operating a grocery store went beyond.
Beyond the processing and retail sale of the meats.
Yeah, because that's why Mr. Miller came in seeking a modification of the SUP, which was denied by the, recommended by the Planning Commission that it be denied, and then it was denied by the Board of County Commission. I want to make it clear that he understood he wasn't authorized to operate a grocery store. He tried to get permission, but did not. So this is strictly to sell boxed meats.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so in order to keep this efficiently, I will move to accept and approve this resolution as written and affirmed by Westcliff Meats, the intent of the original SUP is in fact what's covered in here. And then we can discuss it and modify it if that's the case. If there's any other things I noticed, but like he said, there is a spelling error in here. So I move that be the case. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept resolution 2109 as presented and as reaffirmed by the Westcliff Meats, Aaron Kemp, the representative of the owner. That we are clear, this clarifies the title and it clarifies the intent of what the SUP is, and it further states that it is clear what the Board of Commissioners had limited it to by a recommendation from the Zoning and Planning Commission. So, all right, discussion. Kevin, you got quick ones?
I guess I would reiterate that I'm probably the one that brought the second portion of that into this discussion because of my reading of the 33 or 35-3-103, I believe is what it is, in our prior meeting when we were in the courtroom. And so that is one thing that I wanted clarified on all of this, so that that would not be something that would come back, say, in 6 months and need worked on again. So that is, from my prodding, I believe is why that is in there. And I guess I would state that due to some of my background and things of that nature, I realize that things have progressed in the meat industry as well. It used to be everybody had everything was hanging meat. That is not the case anymore. There's so much more done elsewhere, and it is already broken down for you a lot of times when it comes in. That being said, they do a lot of their own here to where they use hanging meat, but it enhances their ability to utilize more of the carcasses that they do have here that they butcher here as well, by being able to bring in that.
It's called box meats now.
Box
That what you're
meats,
talking about,
yes.
instead of hanging them. Okay. Tom?
Go ahead, I'll follow up. Sir.
good with the resolution that corrected
Okay,
for now.
so unless I do not have the most current one, which is the one I pulled off of your email, we need to get the spelling correct. It's KEMPF, correct?
I did correct.
That's correct. Not on my copy.
I know.
On mine, I had either or. I had the
Correct.
Tina made that correction.
So here's the corrected
Okay,
version.
well, that's fine. I'm just saying that
That was
it's
just
not corrected on mine. That's why I brought it up. And then the paragraph on bit resolved says August 5th and then approved and adopted on August 4th. Is that by intent? Or should the dates be the same?
August.
The last paragraph says August 5th. And it's, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, August 5th was the
that's-
date of the
yeah,
original.
I'm
issue.
sorry.
That was back,
Yep, yep.
2014.
Got it.
so happens we're that many.
Yeah, I
later.
know. I didn't look at the 2014. I looked at the August 5th date, so my apologies, Clint. And then I inserted in the last whereas 35-33-103.
And
Yeah, Tina's made that.
it's already been corrected. So the only other correction in, well,
You said something about spelling. I wasn't sure what you were referring to.
no, I didn't. I meant correction on the number actually.
Okay.
And that's been corrected.
And the spelling on the
The
last.
spelling on Kemp is correct.
But for the record, in my legal opinion as county attorney, we are not modifying the original special use permit. We are clarifying an ambiguity. And this is something, if something similar to this comes up again in the future, I think the conditions need to be looked at a little bit more closely so we don't run into a question.
Having questions like this on other SUPs.
Right.
And then the other thing was I received an email Vic that said he had talked to Jackie. Are you going to speak to that or?
Actually, if you look at Vic's email, is that what you want me to do now or?
Yeah.
speak?
I'm just asking if you were going to speak to that.
Yes, I'd like to.
Okay.
So if
Go ahead,
you-
quick.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm confused.
For the record, this is Vic Barnes, Chairman of the Planning Commission.
So Vic came into my office yesterday morning with concerns about the wording that was on the first one. He had concerns about the modification wording, plus we had concerns about the word carcass and stuff. And so Vic said that if the word modifications is still in there, that word indicates that if you have to modify an SUP, it has to go back before the planning commission because it has to follow the zoning resolution.
Right.
So now with this new one that I received from plan, I sent it out to Vic and he did not receive any response. So in my opinion, Vic was satisfied that the words that he was concerned with, modification and stuff like that, are no longer in this document. Because then you would be going against the Custer County zoning resolution.
Okay.
And
Is
the
that-
other one that Vic was concerned with, the word carcass, is actually the exact definition it meets in the statute, but I just made reference to it rather than
Putting carcass.
spelling it out, just
It's okay.
made reference to where that's found.
Like an old hide.
Well, that's how they define meat and poultry. I had the definitions of both spelled out, and I just make reference.
That's easy.
And that was a little concern also, because when you start spelling out what someone can and cannot do, so then if there was ever a site visit and they were cutting up emu, well, it's not on their bird list.
Yes, it's a flightless bird.
It's like an ostrich.
Okay, there you go, because that wasn't on the list, so.
TV star, no?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
TV star.
Runs on a treadmill.
Got legs.
Yeah. All right.
And then I think my third thing here is in Vic's email. He asked about fish. Is that correct?
Yes, and so we had actually sat there and defined fish as a meat.
So that would be allowed under this.
Right.
Correct. That's what we were thinking.
It'll be interesting to see a fish carcass next to a steer in there.
But salmon, they could get boxed salmon and repackage it. Lobster.
Okay. Any other discussion? Public? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of granting this resolution or approving this resolution 2109. Resolution of Custer County Political Subdivision of the State of Colorado making certain administrative clarifications to the special use permit for the business known as West Cliff Meats. Say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Kanda? Aye.
And it is West Cliff Meats that's been taken care of, correct?
And if you look, the registered agent has been updated. We are in good standing and we're working on, forgive me, I'm a homeschooler, dissolve. We're basically going to dissolve those other two LLCs.
Good.
Yeah, I haven't been back on the secretary.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but it's still Henry Miller, whether he's doing business
As.
I mean, he's the property owner. That has not changed.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's fine to just keep, the permit was issued to West Cliff Meats, and that's the way the permit's going to stay.
And then a copy of this will go into your file, Jackie. That right?
Please, after you have signed it.
And you'll provide us with a copy of that.
Of course.
Okay, here you go.
Her signature. by the way.
Trust me, said the spider.
Her signature,
Trust me.
her signature, Clint.
But her signature.
Yeah, I want a piece of that as
Should all be
well.
of it,
Yeah.
I tell you what, you guys come by in a couple weeks and we'll give y'all ribeyes.
No, don't say that.
Yeah.
Everybody got antsy all of a sudden.
If the price is right.
Did you get Dr. Quickly?
No, we're not a grocery store.
And I'm gonna personally go out there and look for the thin skin or the fat on the back. That's where I want mine cut.
Yeah, except in the truth, is like that ended when I quit being the judge.
Wow, we're all gonna wind up in jail. Anybody hear Shannon coming?
Yeah,
Are we done?
we're done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you to everybody who's put a lot of brain pain into this. I know it's been,
Kill that.
Yeah, we don't want to see you again.
Ended up being this.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
Ended up being a deeper rabbit hole than any of us anticipated. But
Thank you. You bet.
Thank you, Aaron. They'll be in here.
We might have a map to hold up later if you want to.
Sure, you just call me if you got. a
Thank you,
map.
Vanatana. For holding it.
I start the handshake over here.
Yes, sir.
You bet.
I know we're all working. Good for you again. I don't know you, but.
Nice meeting you here.
Okay, did we, ready for the next round here? We're going into consideration for the Recovery Funds Committee. Do we all have a current version of that? Can you hand me a?
I handed you all a current copy this morning, but I still don't know about a couple of the potentials.
Yeah, I'm not gonna add any more than what the four are that I had.
Okay,
We did get a brand new one.
turn it out for them.
corrected spelling on mine. I don't know about yours, but before we get too far into the weeds, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend we refer to these folks by number and not by
Yeah, I
name.
do too, and I thought she was gonna number all of them, so we're just gonna go from the top down.
She numbered the ones that are in
Oh,
consideration.
there they are, okay. Fine, so
I
we're.
apologize. I'm
So-
still looking. If I could, I probably dropped it way down in my list somewhere here.
Make another copy. Because here's what I would propose, and then we can talk about it. So I think the ones she's numbered, she's got them from 1 through, I thought we had 12. Did you fall short of your 4? Do you have 4?
I
I
have
thought you said somebody had decided.
one of my potentials became a yes. I have, actually, both of them were potentials, became yeses, and everyone else that I have reached out to has declined. So I had,
You just had 3.
I believe,
Once you relook yours over there and make sure all yours are on. Tom, you see yours all on.
Yes. So
I have two.
then I guess my next question is, what does the word potential mean for us?
To me, that was people that have, this is my interpretation, these are people that agreed to serve to become a committee member. And I told them, we don't know this, just because you agreed to serve doesn't mean you'll be selected.
Okay, that's exactly what I told my people.
Yeah.
So your number, well, they're not numbered, but the two potentials then become 12 and 13. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes,
Those were yours, right?
I have 4 total. No,
I see 3 potentials here for him, so that would actually be 12, 13, and 14.
see, I have,
I've only got 2 potentials on my list.
okay, I have number 1, I have number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it clear up the top.
Yeah.
I was looking at the numbered column.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
look at the numbers. And so I have number 3, I should have 4. Number 3, I have number 5 and 6. And I have number 8. That's 4.
Okay,
So I was going in,
so we're gonna each submit 4.
that was the original intent. I got 4 and I had some potentials that would consider it if we had to go.
So you've got,
I'm just gonna go with
you
the
got
4.
3, 5, 6, and 8.
8.
And those ones you want to, so we're
That's
gonna
what I'm going-
scratch
Gonna
potential.
scratch the rest out.
So do you want me to reprint it with just the?
Yeah,
candidates?
no, just leave it like.
For now, we may have some
we
other
can-
changes.
Okay.
Yeah, we will.
Um,
So what I was going, and then Tom, you've got, let's make sure we see your number 2. Your number 4. And you are number 7,
Yes,
and you are number, you get your number
9
9.
and 10. So if we're gonna submit 4, number 7 or number 9, either one of those, they both agreed to serve.
Okay,
I
so,
didn't push them for a preference because I didn't know for sure where we're gonna be for the
Okay.
total number. If we want to stick with 12, that's
Yeah.
what we said, and I'm good with
let's
that.
stick with 12.
And I only actually have 2 on my list that I am submitting because the first and second round,
Okay,
that's what I received for
All right.
commitments.
so number 11,
And
firm, and number 1.
yes,
And so that gives us a total of what, 11?
So I would be fine with leaving 7 and 9 as my 5. If you want to pick another one, that should bring us to 12.
Right, yeah. Pick what reason, if you have a reason to pick one over the other, then give us your suggestion.
No, I'm just saying if, let's say that I said, let's throw number 7 out. If Kevin's short 2, then I would recommend putting 7 back in and then asking you to do the same thing
Yeah,
from one of your potentials.
as long as we get to 12.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
reasonable. But in other words, we're recommending 5 apiece and you're recommending 2. And you're all right with that?
I am.
Okay. So I would recommend then we leave number 7 in there just because 7 and 9 both agreed. If,
That's good. That's fine.
and do you have a preference of your potentials then, Bill?
Yeah, the Elizabeth Watson, I'm sorry,
Oops,
number, well, we don't have a number.
right above 11.
Right, so that would become number 12.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
So that's 12. I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
Kevin is number 1. I don't mean to call him mine, but my contact is number 2. Bill's was number 3. Mine was number 4. Bill's was number 5 and 6. Mine was 7. Bill's was 8. Mine was 9 and 10. Bill's was 12 and Kevin's was 11. Is that okay?
So here's a process I'll suggest, and then we'll go from there. I thought about, and you had made a suggestion, Tom, to throw them in a hat and draw them, but the drawback there was one of the reasons we went with 4. We wanted diversity of backgrounds, as well as a diversity of from several things. A dog in the fight or not, this criteria is meaning they do not have anything to gain by being on the committee. And also they have exhibited leadership capability to understand and be able to look at these objectively. So that's how I selected mine. And so I would suggest, and we can pick a number, but I would say we each can toss this into a hat, vote for 2 of them and throw the other 2 out and select one of yours or one of yours and keep going in those rounds until they get down to 5 is a way of doing that. It would be a process issue. That way we can talk to why. First of all, I'd like to understand the 4 that you have, why they should be on the committee, all 4 of them. And have that ability. We can each describe that. And then I'll take my top 3 and then vote for 2 others, one from each of the other 2, perhaps. That's a suggestion. If there's a better way of doing that that you can help modify that with, let's figure that out. But we can do that by process of elimination.
If I understand you right, and I'll restate what I think.
That's
I heard
good.
you
That's
say
what we need to do.
another thought, it could be one or the other. I don't have a great sense of urgency of I want to pound the desk and make sure candidate number X gets on the committee. I really don't. That being said, if I was allowed one person on the committee, then I would pick a person. So I'm wondering, could we consider each of us submitting a person to the committee and then draw the last 2 out of the remaining pool?
Or we could go through that same process one more time with the remaining people and say, who's your next best pick? Why? We need to explain, because I would like to understand, because I don't know all these people.
Right. Yeah, there's a person here, I've never even heard of their name. So
Yeah, and I know personally each people that I have recommended and their strengths and why I recommend them from a diversity point of view that Kevin could hear and you could hear, so you understand why I think they're good. And then you need to explain, because you know your people and maybe you can explain why that person should stay on, and then we can vote for that.
So your original suggestion is we go through and select one from each of us.
Yeah.
And then go around the second time and pick 2. Okay. Which is, instead of drawing them out of a hat.
Yeah, don't draw them out of the hat. I want to listen to why that next person that you're going to
We
recommend should stay
justify
on.
our recommendation and then pick with the final 2.
So we could pick 2. I'll, if I'm believing in mine and pick one of yours because you've suggested.
May I add to that?
Go ahead.
Were we still thinking about possibly seating an alternate?
Yes.
I think it's wise. So that 3rd one then could be, or the
Last
5th
one.
6th one could become an alternate.
That's right. And I think that's necessary because you want to keep this process going and they can sit in the meetings, not voting, and get familiar. They don't have to be in all of them. But if somebody had to leave town and you wanted to keep giving money out, you need to have somebody that's got the background to do it.
And I did not speak to any of my contacts about, would you be willing to serve as contact or alternate?
No, and I think
So-
it's fair to go and say, you're not primary, but we
So
serve
maybe-
as an alternate.
I did mention that to mine.
So maybe we ought to select in order
Mhm.
2 or 3 alternates in case the first alternate says, no, I'm not going to commit that kind of time to be a backup.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with that. So maybe we select 8 altogether with 3 alternates in order
Mhm.
in case we contact somebody and they say no. Stop.
Okay. So let's try it and we'll probably modify it as it goes so we make sure we're doing the same thing on the next round. So Tom, tell us about yours first.
About all of them
Yes,
or about?
all of them. Why you picked candidate number 2?
I called that person because of her involvement in the community, her knowledge of a lot of the other organizations in the community. I think she would have a understanding of what the needs and the services, a lot of different groups or people. It doesn't have to be groups. It could be an individual person, but
the importance of it.
Yeah, just knowing this community is probably the biggest thing. I know that that person would be willing to commit the time, and also indicated to me that was confident that the candidate was confident that the candidate would be able to bring stuff to the table, not just sit back and go, okay.
And be objective.
And be objective, yeah. And for transparency, this person is also on a board of directors of an organization in this county. Whether or not they would apply, I have no idea. But I'm trying to avoid the word she, but she did indicate that she would not have a problem participating in a discussion, but would recuse herself from a vote if it came to that.
Okay, tell us about 4 then.
For this lady, extremely well experienced at the federal level, has lived in the community off and on because she's been appointed by 2 different presidents to serve on the staff of those 2 presidents, but she lived here off and on for 25 years. Feels like she said the same thing. Feel like I could bring a varied perspective to the committee, and is also committed to spend the necessary time, not only to serve on the community, but to get herself educated on the American Rescue Plan.
Cool. Okay, then number 7.
7, I'll talk about 7 and 9 together if you don't mind, because I want to be transparent. They are married. I don't know if that's an issue, but I think that you need to be aware of that. They do own a business in the county. We're upfront in admitting they didn't know a lot about the American Rescue Plan, but they liked the general sound of what I explained, that I thought what that rescue money was for, not strictly for COVID, but for other issues to help our community recover. Both very well educated. Number 9, I didn't realize this, sorry. Number 7, former business background, was managing 27 healthcare facilities. Senior citizen, basically, said. So I felt like there'd be a good background there, and I just didn't know that was new information to me. So as I don't mean as a package, but both of them kind of felt the same way, that wouldn't have an issue with the commitments, which was a big concern of mine. No idea how much commitment, and I told them that, but I think it's going to be substantial on the front end anyway. So number 10, another person who's been involved in this community the last 7 or 8 years that they've lived here, serves on a board of a special district. Again, I had a conversation with her about a conflict of interest. Indicated she certainly would be willing to recuse herself from any voting if that came to the table as well. So I know 3 of these people fairly well and had extensive interaction with them over the years. 7 and 9 candidates fairly new to the community, which is one of the reasons I reached out to them as well, because I thought it might be nice to have a relatively fresh pair of eyes on this without a lot of prior knowledge, background, and baggage. So that's kind of my push.
Good. Okay, thanks. Got it.
Number 1
Is misspelled.
is misspelled.
And he gave me the correction.
Okay.
Has been in the community on the other side of the mountain for a relatively short time, but has become very involved, including in the ambulance situation. This person has been a part-time resident, but is becoming a full-time resident, is in the process of doing that as we speak now. And I became pretty well acquainted with this person in regards to the ambulance situation in Wetmore. And they've taken the reins and taken the lead on that and ran with it. As well as with involved in a lot of other things as well. And they show a heart for the community. And I think they would do a very good job in that respect as well. And I think they had initially thought that another committee they had just got on just a few days before I contacted them would interfere, but that has since went away. And so they are able to commit
Which one's that?
full-time at this time. This is still number one.
Okay.
Say they, because you don't want to say he or she, correct?
That is correct.
You can say that candidate.
I'm
if you
trying to
want.
be good
I
on that.
tried to and I failed.
So, well, in your defense, I was the first one to throw names out the other day, so.
Quick question. You said part-time. How long have they been involved with Custer County? For quite a while.
I'm going to say 2 years, two and a half years or so.
Can I add a quick background note on candidate number one?
As far as there being an ex-county commissioner and another, yes.
Yeah. She's a former county commissioner.
Okay.
She's been through the political realm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good to know.
So, candidate number 11.
So with all respect, we don't use the word ex here. We use former.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm teasing.
Let's
We'll
see.
do that.
I guess it's like you're always an honorable even after you're in the office. If we treat it like a congressman.
We're did something. Excuse me on that. Candidate number 11 has been in this community for a long time. I've had dealings with them for many, many years. And this person is also very involved in the community up here. Shows a lot of heart, cares for the community, cares for the people in this county. Is involved in multiple facets, I guess multiple things up here. And has an extensive background. I guess you could say in the military and in running it's not really a business, but an organization in this valley.
Good news is we all three know this candidate. There's only a few of them that we all don't know.
So, and yeah, I think everybody is
Background and all
fully
this
aware of
particular
this candidate and the potential they have to do an excellent job for us on that committee. And since we all know them, I'll lay at that.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll give you a lay down on mine. As I mentioned, I took a look at this from an economic recovery point of view, not COVID. It's the result of COVID that's caused this committee to be put in place to get our economy back on track and to do better. So with that in mind, the first one I'll talk about is number 3. This person's had the property up here for in excess of 15 years or so, coming and going, and been building that property to retire to eventually. And that person did retire about 3 years ago, and has been involved from day one in this community, not just from when they retired. He retired, I should say, this candidate retired. And so very objective, has worked as a businessman in big cities doing executive level decision-making. And I've been very impressed with that person's ability to get out and get engaged with things that are going on in the community already. So, and because of I looked at this from a economic recovery point of view. I viewed it as important to have that person's objective view to put into the mix. The next one was candidate number 5. This person is a younger generation person that's willing to commit time. This person works full-time, but has a business interest in this person's own business. So it has the ability to make time to make this happen. And in fact, has made time to be part of several volunteer organizations in this county, and does come from the construction industry. So that puts on a flavor where this person's been involved in the economic growth of this county already and knows a lot of the people and the people that are building up here as well. So I like that from both points of view. You get a different look of people making a living already, trying to make a living. That's number 4. And then the next one is number, where am I? 8. This person that comes with from my point of view, the lifelong resident of this valley, has been a leader in the valley and represents the agricultural interests of this valley, and would bring something to bring forward that a person out of a city wouldn't know now. What is the impact to the ranchers and the farmers up here, and how would that rank more importantly over somebody that had a business loss in town, for example? And how does that rate above or below that person's need? So I thought that would be an excellent, this person would be an excellent candidate. And then the next one is, I gotta go down my list, is, where am I?
I believe you skipped
I skipped 6, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to skip 6. 6 is one that we all 3 know, so I'm not going to get into too much detail, other than the fact this also is a person with tremendous leadership experience, willing to take the hard-nosed look and make a decision without emotion of what the impact is to the 2 people applying to, meaning being very objective about it. And I've seen that in action, as well as having the ability to be compassionate about getting there in the first place, and making an objective decision based upon the backgrounds of the people that are applying to, knows the valley fairly well. So I'll leave it at that. I think this candidate would be a good one too.
And candidate 6 has a G in their name between N and S.
Yes, I didn't catch the spelling there.
Thank you.
Okay. And then finally,
The one right above 11.
the one right
Which
above
is 12.
which is number 12. And that person has a background in the community for many years, served on many committees, has done work in other disciplines, school involved as well. And so I thought that would be very, very good. And it's also a realtor here in the valley, which has enabled a lot of perspective of the economic value of some of the other things that could be brought to bear. So, and all 3 of us know that person. So I think that's all I need to say there.
And then we agreed to add Braden Wilson at the bottom, right, with Tina.
Yeah, and I think Braden begged off.
He did beg off.
And so what he was going to do is Tina will bring issues to Braden as they come up, but he can't spend the time that might be required initially. So I thought that was okay. We could talk about that. Because what we're really relying on initially is selecting the person, but now the process of implementing the fund request. Now, Braden said he would use his deputy quite a bit to help facilitate that. We can talk about that. Probably it's a separate issue. Talk with him later.
So I would, I guess, ask the question, if you were allowed 1, who would it be? I don't know how else we go about selecting.
Or we could see if we go with 2, that gets us down to 6.
Yeah,
But we
we
have
have the
to-
first round.
Yeah, first round. Okay.
Yeah.
If I were to add 1 right now to be objective, I would put in number 5.
Okay. And I would probably recommend to this group number 4. KD.
I think I would probably, and both would be very good to be on this, but I think to do this would be number 11.
Okay,
Okay. I can certainly support those 3 suggestions.
me too.
I could as well.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're down to where we need 2 more.
Correct.
And so we'll have to select the next one. So if I
What
were,
would your recommendation be, Bill?
I would take number 6.
And I guess because Kevin didn't bring a full 4 to the slate,
My recommendation from my list would be number 1.
okay, and I would. Let me get caught up here. And I would probably suggest number 2. It's kind of a toss-up for me between 2 and 10. But,
Okay,
I would throw that suggestion number 2.
okay, so now, because we only need
5, we've got 6.
we could, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now would be the time we need to figure out how to argue whether the 3 that are there, because I made, I'll give you an example. My next choice, and let's see what our next choice would be, and weigh it against the 3 that we've got lined up here would be number 8. It's because of the background and
Right. But it wouldn't fall in your first 2.
that's right.
Okay.
Well, I could be willing to, yeah. I could debate that too later.
Mhm.
So I would,
Well, I would again suggest we throw these names in a hat and pull out 5. That's our committee, and pull out the 6th one would be the first alternate, and we select 2 alternates.
I think then what we probably ought to do though, then was we got to make sure the remaining ones that aren't in there, because they, for example, 8 could still be in Kevin's mind or your mind more important than number 1 or number 6.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm willing to take each of ours at face value. I agree with number 8 that brings a different perspective that nobody else on this list really has, but you chose your 2. He was, it sounds like, 3rd on your list, and I'm fine with that. I don't want to say, well, I don't really agree with your number 8.
I agree.
You probably know them people, or you wouldn't have contacted them just like I would. We can certainly have a conversation about it. I'm willing to
Make good point.
take everybody at their face value
I think,
recommendation. That's why I suggested that we take these 6 and draw them out of a hat. And the whole draw out of a hat thing, I could be a great orator and have an advantage over somebody that's not. You could be more passionate than I am and have an
Sure.
advantage. I just think it would be a fair, unbiased approach to select 5. That's why I threw it out.
And you're speaking of the last 2 slots and the 3 alternates, is that?
Well, I'm talking about
It
the
could be,
first
yeah.
5 slots and 1 alternate. We've got 6 names in front of us. We need to pick 5.
Okay.
And so unless you have
So we,
another suggestion.
so you're looking at 5, 4, 11, 1,
Uh,
is that right? What are your?
no, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 11 are the 6 that we've said we would recommend to the
Yeah, that's
committee,
what-
but we only need 5, so we need to get rid of 1. If you have a better or a different way you would like to narrow that down from 6 to 5, let's talk about
Then we could
it
throw in the, either the ones that didn't get in
in the second
in
round.
the second round.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought we'd go around and do the same thing again
Yeah.
and then say, okay, here's my suggestions for alternates.
Okay.
We need to pick 2 more.
I
alternates.
like that. Then we gotta get to the alternate thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that, you said 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 11, is that right?
That's correct. That gives us each 2, right?
Yep. Good with that, Kevin?
I believe so. You know, the only outlier in this is that technically we wouldn't have to probably have stuck with our list to recommend somebody either, I guess, in that count, but
Oh, but that's what we.
That's
But
what we
it
do,
makes
yeah.
sense.
So-
But what we could do is take a look at those, and is there one that we would agree that could be eliminated without? Because you don't want to lose, you know, that maybe that's more to the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm confident with any of these 6.
Mhm.
yeah.
So if, let's say, for example, one of my suggestions didn't get in, okay, that's fine.
Mhm.
I may be more confident on a couple than a couple others, but that's what I was saying. I don't want to get into, well, I don't think Kevin's number, whatever, is
Mhm.
any good. I just don't want to get in there because I may not have the same
The same knowledge.
background and knowledge. You wouldn't have brought them up if you didn't think they were good. I don't think Bill would have brought his up if he didn't, and I certainly wouldn't have either. So,
And every one of them's on the list because they would probably do a good job on this
Right.
committee.
Yeah, and so we could, yeah, I don't have a problem.
okay. I don't know of any other way. So that's why I'm suggesting that
You got little folder folding things ready?
attorney, can we get the attorney to actually earn his money for a change?
Sure. We have-
Are you guys okay with that?
Anything to do.
You know, you sit back there and read your emails and shop online.
Now, he had to read all the whereases in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Are you guys okay with that? I mean,
I think so.
I'm worried that my number 1 pick may not get in there, but I'm confident the other 5. and, you know,
We're
just
picking-
fine.
we're
So,
picking- We're picking 5, right, out of the 6?
correct. And did you number them?
They're numbered
Okay.
according to the sheet you guys.
Okay.
I want Wetmore to shake it.
Okay, what more needs to shake it
So-
before you pick?
He's not talking about the judge.
Make it-
So
flip it
to be
upside
clear,
down, get
then,
it
the
all
first
around.
5 names drawn will be the sitting committee.
Correct.
The 6th name drawn will be the
First
first alternate.
I agree.
Do you want me to read them out loud?
Just the number.
Just numbers.
That's why I was asking if
Yeah,
she.
just
numbered
numbers.
Or name.
I numbered that.
Okay.
The names on it.
Wait a minute now, wait a minute, well, hold on. You hold the the jug, go ahead and hold it now, I don't trust him. Hold it up high, he's looking at him, he's
Yeah,
reading.
he's going through them. That's ridiculous.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
All
Which one you got?
I got number 1.
right,
Okay,
one,
hang on, I gotta mark it.
Number 1 is number 1.
all right. It's like the lottery.
It is.
Might be more stakes than a lot
Oh,
of.
he's looking again, Tina.
Can't find them.
Keep his eyes
They're
open.
all procured again.
Should have wadded him up
Make
in
sure
the
I'm just getting
spitball.
one.
I'm thinking she needed a bigger head, so.
Is that an age thing going on back there or not?
What? Let's read the number.
11.
All right, love. The suspense is killing me.
I know. Should we have a drum roll?
Yeah.
2.
2.
we're doing a pattern here. The next
Yeah.
one should be 12, right?
Yeah, it's gotta be.
4.
Oh, mess that up.
It's like Las Vegas.
Now we got one number left here, right?
Should have two.
We have two.
Hey, let's get a younger attorney. Shouldn't be that difficult, sir.
Well, that's one again.
Wait a minute, how did the vote get rigged? It can't be possible.
I already had one.
Are there two ones? So you better pick the last one.
Holy
Last
smokes.
time.
Well, hold on.
Oh,
You had
man.
two number ones in there.
No, I cut the numbers out of the sheet I gave you guys. There was one number one. He said it on the table.
Well, how'd you get it twice?
Is
Oh, we picked it up off. You got two left in your jug there, boss?
No, not as far as I can. I'm just gonna hand it to, I'm not sure if you should.
Yeah, OEM. you
What
wanna
happened?
stay
You
out
can't
of
have
it.
two ones.
Million says.
And that. 5.
That's the very last name. So that will
Those are the
be,
ones I got.
that would be our first alternate.
You only picked five.
I thought we were picking the 5 and then the alternate you guys were gonna do separate.
No,
No,
you should have had all
together.
6 in the jug at the same time.
Okay.
Did that not
You
happen?
want to put some more in here?
Let's redraw it. with
We need to
all
redraw with all
Redraw it,
6.
okay. I think I'm
My
looking at
paper's all
everything.
messed up.
six. Too, I got some.
It's okay, Chick. It's okay. We had a dry run. Put all 6 in there.
Okay.
So we have an opportunity maybe to select a different drawer.
You back to
Let's
wet
see how
water shades.
Adrian does. Actually, let's go to Gail. We know she isn't gonna screw up.
But you have to shake the jar.
Yeah, you got it. You get to shake it, CA.
They didn't shake up at all.
Got my
These are tiny
glasses on.
strips.
Yes,
and all
those little
stuck together.
strips.
Well,
What's
fold
that?
them in half.
They're little strips.
Yeah.
Fold them in quarters
Why would you-
or staple them together or something.
He's gonna be a senior time exam.
I know.
Yeah, when you said there's one left, Will went,
What? How did that happen? And we got one twice out of that? How did that happen?
Lord.
That was totally,
It's really-
sounds like we got Dominion voting machines on it.
So that would be a pretty bad one. My candidate got two votes.
So, where did you get your voting machine?
Well,
Should get it
typical
from Custer County, 'cause they
typical
work
for
right-
Wetmore to try to rig
Was
the
that-
election.
Should get it from Custer County because they work.
They work
right
in Custer County, but
Custer
what I worry about is at the state.
Maybe we should have the clerk run an election through her.
Yeah, you should have been doing this.
Yeah. Okay, won't fold them as small this time. How's that?
Well, whatever you can do.
That's
to shake
probably
it
it.
up, it's all right with me. Well, you got 6 different ones in there. You don't have one twice again, do you?
No.
How'd that happen? I think Clint put it back in.
I just read the number, right?
Yeah.
Are you doing it or me doing
She's doing it.
Yeah, let's have a commissioner's wife
Everybody
do
else
it, for
needs to
God's sake.
Yeah.
Meeting.
Well, Wetmore was ahead last time, so.
Yeah.
She's smart. See,
Sorry,
she
look at her, see, she did it.
And she never even looked at the.
She didn't look, didn't taint it any. She's pretty objective
It's
about
not
it.
stuck together.
And we're not gonna go 2 out of 3, right?
Yeah, we don't like this.
11.
Yeah.
11, all right, 11's back on.
You had one, pick a different one.
No,
Don't put that on the table.
yeah, that's right, don't get it back.
it? I'm taking the ones that have been, these are been done.
Yes.
Don't throw them away.
I'm not throwing them away.
We may have to do this 6 more times. Number 5.
That one was already drawn.
How many people does it take? Okay, we have 6.
Number 6.
I just don't want to get too, that's 4.
Number 4. Okay. So far, so good. I know. Malfunctions of the voting machinery.
And number 1.
Number 1.
Okay, this one will be the first alternate.
All right, first alternate.
Can you find it?
Yes. Number 2.
Number 2. Number, what does that leave?
So now we need to select a couple more alternates.
Yes.
Okay, so let's each propose one.
Before we, well, yeah, we just got to make sure we get the spelling right on all these names.
Yeah.
That would
We'll
not
do
be
that.
good.
That's
Yeah.
true. All right, Kevin, go first. Who would you want to throw back in there that hasn't been selected? Of you?
You know, there are some of these names. I probably know less of some of these people than you guys do because of my geographic location, but
Propose who?
I would. I suppose I would say number 8.
Okay, 8. Huh?
We're gonna put these names in, we're each picking one.
Yep, we're each picking one, we'll pick one.
I would probably select.
Number 10. Okay, and I will select 3.
You selected 3.
Uh-huh.
You need 2 more alternates.
Yeah, but
And
we'll go through another round.
To be clear, your number 3 wasn't one of your initial
That is.
in the first round of drawing.
Oh,
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
no.
okay.
Yeah.
So we put those 3 in,
Draw one.
then we'll do
Draw back
number
in.
2 and then draw out number 2. That reasonable, KD? We got 3 in there. The first one we pull out will be the second alternate, and the third one we pull out will be the third alternate.
That will work for me.
Okay, Madam Election Official. Put them in a jug, shake the voting machine up.
And the first, second, and third alternates, we'll reach out to the first alternate and find out if they're willing. And if they're not, then we'll go to the second one.
So this is a second alternate.
That's correct.
Correct. Number
10.
Number 10. Okay.
Second alternate.
Third alternate.
This is a third alternate now.
That should cover our bases. That's good enough.
I don't think we'll ever
Number
get-
3.
Number 3.
All right, then just another thought, if kind of goes without saying, but if we go back to the first 5 and one of them says,
Could drop out, but we'll just
could
ratchet it up.
then we move the first alternate in. That's reasonable.
Yep.
So I've got one more question that was posed to me. And this may be an attorney question. I had a gut reaction to the question, and then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, I better think about this a little. Do we want this committee to operate in anonymity?
No.
Because I've had two people already ask me who was on
They
the
afraid to be,
committee,
they afraid
and I
to be.
knew exactly why they were asking.
I would say no, only because you can't keep it secret.
Because they were headed straight to the people to start lobbying.
And what I would do is make sure the rules that we set up for the committee is they don't get to entertain anything privately. They gotta just refer it to the committee for a discussion, just like we did.
Which brings up another question. We got into it with the Corona Relief Fund. Are we going to ask the committee to vet only the applications and not cut a bunch of side deals privately? The only way they'll consider a request is if it's on an application.
That's right.
Now, we've deviated from that in that CBRF deal. And looking back, I'm not sure it was right or fair.
But we have an opportunity now. That's the whole point. They were supposed to come up with their own process, their own application, their own view of what made it acceptable. And then have them fill out the application, let them vet it, and let that person discuss it publicly with them.
I don't know about that. That's
Not public,
that's what I'm questioning.
Yeah. And I'm seeing where most people that will have a need will come with an application. I'm thinking that probably where you deviated is if someone saw a need and then they brought that need to the rest of the
No, we
committee.
allow the people to submit an application to appear in person to state their case. And looking back, I think that was.
Maybe not, maybe, I don't know.
I think we still set the framework.
Yeah.
For this whole committee to function in.
That's right.
And I just think that was not only fair, because not everybody had equal opportunity to do that, because I don't think everybody knew they could do that. And
Maybe that's
then-
why.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure it was right either.
But I agree with what you said partly. I think I learned in that committee that when it was presented, the application, you can't make an application cover all what the nuances might be that a question would pull out of an applicant to make it clear. And that's fair.
I don't discount that, but I'd
why I
like to
think
see our application be very simple. And in my thought, this is how much I'm asking for and this is why. If they do a good job of answering that second part,
I
I just
think,
think the application should stand.
but I think that's one of the reasons we picked people here is to have them make a process that they get comfortable with, to select the right person. Because I wouldn't want to be on that committee and then have it so nebulous that if they had had an opportunity to debate what that application ought to be, they could do a better job of selecting if they get the right questions asked.
I think the one thing we did right on that CBRF committee was say there's absolutely not an appeal process.
Right.
Like Board of County Commissioners' decision will be final. Whether it's in accordance with the recommendation of the committee or not, right?
So.
Because we're going to ask them to recommend whether or not we approve.
But wait, now we got time to go through that. If we don't, we're gonna have to get going. But
Yeah, I don't have to do it all
Let's-
today. I just
we don't have
wanted to
go.
throw out that
That's
kind of conversation on it.
Yeah, because, and in speaking to your first point, as far as somebody presenting, would it be one way or the other? It needs to either be yes or no on that, I think. But if they're, and I don't know what the whole process is going to look like either till we kind of get into it, but first round of vetting might be just off of the application. And then if you go through the first round, then if you go to round two, then you present your case.
That's
And
what they decide.
I don't know what that would look like either.
Yeah, I see the value in that unless we have 125 applications.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect this committee to go through them twice.
Maybe
A
not.
lot
But
of time.
the point is that the way the Fed is set up, the way this guidance is set up, it gives us plenty of time to go let the people give it, think about it, just like we just did, get some recommendations. And then come back and say, here's what we're gonna do. We reserve the right to modify that as commissioners.
I would think that we ought to set a date to seat this committee.
Sure.
Then we ought to set a couple of dates for organizational meetings for that committee. And set a date for the opening of the application process. And set a date for the closing.
So
And then that committee could take however long they want to function.
I agree with that. However, I would like to have them, first of all, have their first meeting and then come up with those recommendations. So that
Yeah, right. I'm not saying we need to.
No need to sit here and do it right now.
I just,
I agree.
in my opinion, that should be the
That's very
process. And then I think the last two dates should be, then they have a date that they make their final recommendations. I'm assuming
Yeah,
they
they
can
want
make
to
them
go.
any time, but you're not gonna make any recommendations after, I'll just throw out September 1, 2025. That's what it's gotta be before 24.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to squeeze the time frame. I'm just saying if we give them,
Real dates.
we need some dates in here. And then we have a date set for us to make the final
That'll work.
Yeah.
authorization. Now, is that gonna happen more than once?
Good, but let's let them talk about it.
You know?
Yeah.
If they say, in our opinion, we really feel like you guys should take action on this because we feel there is some immediacy
It
to
could
it or
be.
whatever,
It
that's
could be.
fine. We can
Sort of
vote
like
on
we
it
did
numerous
already.
times, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's how the process, with the window going all the way to 2024, I think that's something that when they have something to bring to us, we're gonna have to address it.
Right.
In a timely manner.
Yeah, maybe they bring their first round of recommendations in 2022, 21,
Could be.
or 22, because it was.
Depending on their view of who's applied, why is it more urgent to do it sooner? Could be.
Right.
So,
But I think that, well, I don't know. See, we get into all kinds of.
we what if it for quite. a
Should the
while.
committee, let's say the committee looks at 5 applications and they make a recommendation to us, then they get 8 more applications. Oh, shit.
That's why we need to let them think about how long do they bank the ones that they've got
Yeah.
and get enough so that it makes sense to have one ranked over the other. You gotta have it.
Yeah, I'd like to see them compare them all against each other.
Sure, because and they might want to do that if there's time to allow that to happen so that somebody doesn't go broke before they get the thing going.
And that being said, we've already addressed a couple because
Because that urgency.
of an urgency to the request. And so I think they need to have the flexibility to have that built in.
Yeah.
To be able,
Yeah, their reasoning could,
yeah,
but I'm thinking maybe the application period is beginning and end, and then the committee vets after that, so that they look at all of them. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they recommend early and then they get a bunch late that they feel, oh, we've got a limited amount of money, so.
All right, you go with a 3-month
Yeah.
time
3 to
frame
6
to
months,
6
whatever.
months and then open it back up again.
Move on, fellas. We don't have plenty of time to do that. So we're gonna go with the numbers that we have. You've got it laid out here.
If I could,
Go ahead. Yeah.
just
If
in
there's
re-
any spellings that are, last names are spelled wrong or first names are spelled wrong, please let me know.
Okay. You brought up, when do we want to seat this committee? Originally, I thought we had planned on doing that at the mid-month meeting. Can we contact these people and see if we could still do that?
That's what we should do. That's what I told them.
To make sure that they're still on.
So, yeah, let's just have time to go back and confirm.
Yeah, that we got 2 weeks.
And let our other people
Yeah.
know that they're either an alternate or they
Right.
didn't get selected.
That's right.
So we can have that done by the.
By the mid-month.
meeting, huh?
So will the commissioners be calling them, or do you want me to send a
No,
letter?
I think commissioners. need to
Yeah, we
do
need
that.
to call people that we recommend.
Okay,
So on this list,
you look at the final committee selections, that's who was selected.
I would say after our 3rd alternate person, which is number 3, everything below that we can scrap and throw away.
Right.
Okay, I just didn't
And
want.
we
to
will
come up with-
contact those people and say, thanks for running.
Yeah, I mean, I will certainly go back to all of the people and start with the ones that were selected and find out if they want to continue to serve before I go to my alternate. But
Okay.
Okay.
that makes sense.
And then we can tell them we'll seat the committee at the mid-month and then we can set up a.
And then they
first
can take
meeting.
on and come back and tell us when they're going to do what.
Now, do we,
And then you'll announce the names at that.
At the Westmore.
do you want me to get confirmation on the first alternate, willingness to serve as the first alternate?
Yeah.
Yes, the other alternates aren't necessary.
Yes.
Well, we want to
Makes
keep them, you know, the alternates all have to be ready to be bumped up. in case something happens.
Okay.
Correct. So we've got 3 alternates.
Yeah, we're gonna ask all 3 alternates to sit
Well,
through all those
No,
meetings.
no,
Okay.
no, we bring this to be ready to step in and come up to speed if it got into it. I mean, we'd have to have a.
If and when we need a second alternate, then we could go to
Right,
that person.
that's right.
Okay.
But you're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be sitting there and not necessarily ever be called.
So if I'm clear, I will go back to all 5 of my people. I'll start with the ones that made the committee and let them know that. And then I'll go to my alternate and ask if she's willing to serve as an alternate and set in on the meeting.
Right.
Only the first alternate.
That way they got somebody up speaking. They can bring the other alternate up if asked. Okay, we good? I'm good.
I had a typo or misrepresentation on my paperwork today. It was not a mistake.
Alternate number 3, I need to give you, I gave you the correct spelling. Take a look at it. Number 3 on mine.
Mhm.
Re-spell that name. It's got a C in it.
Okay, how do you spell it? Oh,
No,
I'll talk to
It's
you
got
later.
a C before the
Okay.
other consonant.
Okay.
Well, I would still like to have a discussion about whether we make these names public initially or not.
Well, we can do that at Wetmore. We can say, here, we got them. We're gonna, I think we do. And we can have that discussion then. We need to get into the, I got something to do this afternoon at 2. We got a equalization board, so let's wait. All right. Okay, so we want to just officially take a recess, correct, Clint?
Yes.
And go into the board.
Well, let's
We have
finish.
one item before that.
Oh, wait a minute, we got one more. What am I saying?
Is JD going to be present?
Yes.
Yes.
And is
He wants me
the,
to call him.
and is the complainant going to be present? Do we know?
He has to be here too.
Yeah, he's got
He's got to
to.
present his.
He's got
So we need to notify him, or does JD
I'm
do that?
assuming he's been properly notified. but-
Hold on, Kelly.
I've
Is
sent him,
JD there?
I've sent him a letter
Coming down?
and
Thanks.
JD said he doesn't have to be present.
JD's on his way down.
I told him when it was gonna be, and I sent him the Zoom link if he wanted to call in. He doesn't even live in the state.
Just assumed he was at the property. Okay,
No, he's not. He lives out of state.
so he may, is there anybody else been participating by Zoom that you're aware of?
No,
Okay.
so let's go ahead and deal with.
Let's deal with this next item. It's consideration of setting up a maintenance contract in the 4 disciplines. Building, contracting, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC for the, not just the courthouse, it's for the county buildings. Which we ought to probably modify. And that would be, that's the consideration. My view is that it's a year-long contract that we select without forbid each year to be renewed. Or we could do 2 years if it makes more sense to debate that. And that way we have a contractor on call. And that in the contract, the RFP we put out, they would have to prioritize the county work accordingly if we call. It's, they're gonna have to make allowances in there if they're gonna bid on this to be able to get to our stuff timely.
Emergency right away and other stuff within like
Right.
48 hours.
Please, and something like that. And then we put that in and put a notice in the paper, bids locally, not any more than give our county people the opportunity to work.
Would you be willing to take the lead on this bill and write something up?
Sure.
Okay.
I would have a question too. He's got courthouse here. You said probably ought to change that to building. Should it be county building?
Yes, well, county-owned building.
Yeah, so,
So county-owned buildings, because the courthouse is right down the hall.
yeah.
That's not the courtroom.
Regardless of what old
And
time.
we have-
They all think this is the courthouse.
And we have an annex across the street.
We
with the
have,
sheriff's
we've got
office here,
that.
Road and bridge departments.
And we could, if we're leasing space like we do with OEM, we would probably apply it to our lease spaces as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
It might
working
be
with
on the
the
owner.
owner,
of the
that
building
normally what you do, the
So I'd
owner is
say let's
responsible.
start with county-owned buildings.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
And
So,
then-
yeah, if you wouldn't mind hammering
Yeah,
out something we
get
can look
something.
at.
All right.
Is that fair?
Sounds good to me.
And I don't think we want to hash this out from the beginning. Let's get a document and
That's
consider it.
exactly right. So
Okay.
this is, all we're doing is voting today on setting this process in motion, that we will have a maintenance contract. And we probably could specify the timing on it, either 1 or 2 years, so that.
And I'd rather wait to vote until we get the document in hand.
Okay, so that's what the point is. So what we're agreeing to now, is the discussion is that we are going to proceed with this, and we will have a contract presented for consideration at some point down the road. Let's say no later than the end of the month.
Okay. And the general gist is to put this out for bids, to put out a notification. Okay.
Notification. So, good. That's the discussion. We agree. We're good.
Yeah, and I think that way we could have it set in place to be in place by, at the latest, probably for 28th, for beginning in 2022 then.
Probably earlier, maybe.
We could.
Fiscal year. Okay. All right, JD, we're gonna recess right now and go into a Board of Equalization.
And I would make that motion to recess the Board of County Commissioners and impanel the Board of Equalization.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to recess and the Board of Commissioners meeting in order to go into a Board of Equalization meeting. All in favor, say aye. Kevin?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And aye. All right, so for the record, you're still recording. As soon as you get ready, I'll fire it up.
I shut everything down.
Go do a new thing.
And you can leave it. You don't need to shut it down, Tina.
While we're in recess,
Mr. Grant's gonna participate. When's the last time you talked?
Yes.
Never.
yes.
Never. No, paper.
Yeah, I do. I need to talk to you.
Kelly talked.
So it's Custer County.
But not right now.
Okay, so I will,
Okay, thank you. All right, bye.
just call me when you're ready
Okay,
on my.
yeah.
Kelly, we're getting ready to go.
I will.
back.